Hello, hello, hello. It's Attorney Mike Graham coming to you from an undisclosed location, and I got sent this little gem by Brooke. I haven't done it yet. I barely have this thing put together. If this stream freezes, don't be shocked. I've got my travel computer. I have Wi-Fi issues, but we'll do what we can. Supposedly, the trial. The rapper trial, whatever this is, whatever you want to call it, Pritchard, the accused, whatever, that's supposed to resume. I also have it on good authority that a SovCit is going to roll into Fleischer for a trial today. I might go to that as well if the state's just slapping around with lame witnesses here. I don't know. We might get frozen and have nothing happen. But here's a little nugget from Brooke. I'll put a link in there. If someone has it, put it in the chat. But I'll put a link in the description when I get around to it. I'm dealing with this stuff with one hand behind my back right now. Let's figure this out.
Judge Simpson will tell you that being a no, we just have one question: are you a hoe? Mr. Shots, oh Mr. Shots, oh where did you go? We have questions like on the weekends, do you work selling burritos? The law talk with my crew, we here to laugh at you. We see you in court acting all tough. You solve this citizen, life must be so rough. Without getting into further details, there were drugs involved. I thought I was smoking crack, but it was just glue that dissolved. Oh man, I gotta get it together because wow, that was messed up. And your honor, I have IBS and I'm bleeding inside and it's really been rough. The law talk with my crew, we here to laugh at you. We see you in court acting all tough. Your soul says citizen, life must be so rough. And now Kinky Kelly is shacked up in bed with the throuple. Then the cat jumped on his wiener and started causing trouble. Love exciting and new, we are and always will be. The law talk with my crew. The law talk with my crew. We see you in court acting all tough. You solve as citizen, life must be so rough. Without getting into further details, there were drugs involved. I thought I was smoking crack, but it was just glue that dissolved. Oh man, I gotta get it together because wow, that was messed up. And your honor, I have IBS and I'm bleeding inside and it's really been rough. The law talk with my crew, we here to laugh at you. We see you in court acting all tough.
Hello, can you hear me? I don't know what happened there. Can anybody hear this? I need some confirmation from the chat. All right, thank you. I just didn't know. That just stopped. It's probably just short of Wi-Fi, whatever. I won't bore you with the details, but I'm working off a phone hotspot right now. So the odds of this going anywhere are low. But I absolutely love that song. That's fun. That's fun. Now we've got two on the playlist, both absolute bangers. Absolute bangers. Thank you, Brooke. All right. All right. I'm loud? No, that's I don't know. Loud and clear. Oh, good. Loud isn't good. All right. Let me see what I can do here. Let's see. Pritchett and Robinson, otherwise known as Robinson and Big Dummy, or Dumb and Dumber if you prefer. Except that's the old one. So let's go back here. Okay. That's that. Somebody tell me if this comes on. If it doesn't come on, I don't know what I'm going to do here. I don't have a plan C. I don't know, but my guess is Fleischer comes on in an hour. I'm probably going to cut to that because I want, which is tough because I don't know if it's actually going to happen. But I got a strong tip based on what was said in court Friday that a SovCit's going to roll in there for a trial. And I don't know if that means a jury trial or a bench trial. A bench trial would be fantastic because that's all Fleischer. He's going to tell me he's going to light him up and everything else. There'll be HE hockey sticks to pay. The Shiza will be hitting the fan. The whole thing will be going on. There may be polka dots. You never know. You never know. All right, let me see here. Let's see if let's see if McBurney's going to show up. But while we do that, I think we should go back to the all-time classic. The first of all, Law Talk with Mike hits. That's right. It gets worse.
Pretrial.
This is crazy.
Ma'am, are you a whore? You're not a whore? Not a whore? You're not a whore?
I never want to hear it again.
Sweet Jesus.
You're not a whore? Not a whore? You're not a whore?
I never want to hear it again.
It gets worse.
There were drugs involved that were given to me that ended up being glue. Like I smoked some glue and stuff. I thought I was smoking crack.
Let's go.
You didn't say the cat jumped on his mirror, did you? Sit down and shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Cat jumped on his mirror. Cat jumped on his mirror. Shut up. Cat jumped on his mirror. Cat jumped on his mirror. Shut up. Cat jumped on his mirror. Cat jumped on his mirror. Shut up. Cat jumped on his mirror. Cat jumped on his mirror. Shut up.
All right, I'm checking. Checking.
Can you just let this go for once? For once? Once?
Okay, bad doing no.
I never want to hear it again.
Are you a whore?
Mr. Sharps,
Not a whore?
Mr. Sharps, Mr. Sharps, Mr. Sharps.
You're not a whore?
It's so good.
You're not a whore?
I never want to hear it again.
You're not a whore? You're not a whore?
I never want to hear it again.
Now, if anybody thinks this is okay, I am in the wrong.
Okay. They're late as usual. I don't have anything backed up. So I'm going to be right here and I'm going to wait and I will come on as soon as I hear from Judge McBurney. All right. So I guess I'll just leave the stream up, but yeah, here. How about a little of this? A little elevator music while we wait.
the wheels of justice are going to roll you right into the Wayne County Jail.
Oh man, I gotta get together.
Any objection? All objections.
There shall not be any cutting of trees. Don't cut any trees. I'll pass the order. No cutting of trees, no felling of trees in Patna number 12.
Did conduct its review. They gathered the parties' income information, then calculated support based on the stipulated judgment with respect to parenting time. Exhibit B attached to the motion is the approved uniform child support order approved by the front of the court. So all conditions have been met in the judgment. So we would ask at this point in time that the uniform child support order be entered by the court.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bishop, what's your position? You're muted, sir. You have to unmute.
I'm aware of what we're here for. I have the paperwork in front of me of this order that they compiled, and I do see here if I disagree with this recommendation, I can file a written objection within 21 days.
Well, that's a result of a referee hearing, and did you have a referee hearing, Mr. Seisel?
No, we did not. This just went to the front of the court.
Okay, well, then that wouldn't be applicable, Mr. Bishop, because you didn't have a referee hearing. I don't know why that's in the order.
Okay.
What's your position? Anything else?
No,
Okay.
just that I don't completely agree with, I don't know if it's taken into consideration that I pay child support on another child, and also in my line of work, the hours fluctuate so much from sometimes it's 32, sometimes it's 40, sometimes it's 26. I don't think things were taken into consideration on that note. They just acquired the information from.
Well, what they would have done is they would have acquired your most recent income information for that period of time was in the year, and then they would have divided it by.
Thank you. That always throws people like, hey, what do I do with that?
Back in the saddle.
All right. We are not on the record yet because the court reporter hasn't made it in. She is working her way through some traffic.
It's on the WAPEC with Mike right now.
Mr. Hiles, is there anything that you think we can discuss not on the record right now? Logistics, plans for today? Your two witnesses are here and ready to go?
Yeah, they're sitting outside. Up here.
Hey, no problem.
And then, I guess as far as it goes, Mr. Pritchett and I just had a discussion about the potential joint recommendation upon a plea. If he wants to do that, I think we need to do that now or not do it at all.
Okay, well, I'll get to him in a sec as we go around, but we'll be able to be on the record in just a moment. All our jurors are here and are ready to go. We need to speak with one juror before we start.
Only because they don't have it handy. It's not like I matured or something.
You ready? Great. All right. Let's get on the record. It is Monday, April 29th, a little after 9 o'clock. And this is day 6 of State versus Pritchett and Robinson. We have our prosecutors here. Ms. Mignot and Ms. Blake are here with Mr. Robinson, and Mr. Pritchett is here. Mr. Hiles, I'll start with the state. Anything we need to get on the record before we bring the one juror out who has something she needs to share, and then her 12 other colleagues?
Yes. I would like to go ahead and tender into evidence the certified conviction, as well as the original first offender sentence and revocation and entry of adjudication of guilt under 18 SC 158229 for state versus Max Pritchett, which was the 2015 incident, which resulted in the home invasion that resulted in death of a Greer. The court has instructed that there be no mention of the death of Jose Greer in front of the jury. So I have redacted the what's been marked as state exhibit 37, taking away all mention of felony murder.
37 is
37 is the redacted copy. 37A is the original certified copy.
But 37 would be the indictment, the plea, the sentence, the resentencing. It's the whole packet.
Both, yes.
Okay.
And yes, both 37 and 37A are presented as the indictment, the first offender sentence, and then the revocation and entry of adjudication of guilt.
Got it. 37 is redacted, 37A unredacted.
Correct.
And you are tendering both right now. 37A will be made part of the record, but will not be shared with the jury.
That's correct.
Okay. And those are certified copies?
Well,
the only ones that could be certified would be 37A.
Yes, 37A is certified copy from the clerk, and the redaction, which has been completed in the defendants, or the exact copies minus the mention of felony murder.
I think it just shows a burglary.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Those are self-authenticating court documents if they're certified, which they are. Ms. Mignot, any objection to the admission of 37A? That's really what would be admitted. 37 is, they'll both be admitted, but 37A is the original evidence. Any objection to either?
And I believe 37 depicts certified convictions and revocations not pertaining to my client.
Both, correct. 37 and 37A, they're related documents. They're all Pritchett. 37A is the originals with nothing redacted. 37 is redacted. Your client's not even in the indictment. So he is nowhere on it. And before Mr. Hiles discusses any of that with the jury, I'll be giving a limiting instruction that anything and everything that comes in through Detective Vasquez relates, if it relates to anyone, it relates only to Mr. Pritchett.
I don't care.
No objection to 37 or 37.
All right, Mr. Pritchett, any objection to states 37 or 37A?
What is the relevance? What is the relevance?
Well, I don't decide relevance, but if you're objecting on relevance, I will tell you that I've already ruled. We had a hearing a while back, and you were here. Ms. Williams represented you at that time on this 418 motion that the state filed, and they argued successfully, in my mind, under the state of the law, that evidence of the prior home invasion case ought to come in because it was their claim gang related. And even if it's not gang related, burglary and home invasion are crimes that come in under the rule of evidence 418 if there is a gang prosecution, because that is the type of offense covered by the Street Gang Terrorism and Prevention Act. So I've already ruled that it's admissible, it's probative as to potential connections to a gang. In theory, it would be the same gang. That's what the state would argue. But it's also probative, I found relevant, because the state is going to use it to attempt to explain why, in their mind, if you were involved with this home invasion, you elected to leave your phone at Vas Coleman's residence. It's kind of strange talking to you about this because I'm not making any findings at all. I don't know what the jury is going to decide. But the state's theory is, one, it connects you to gang activity. It comes in under 418 that way. Anyway, it has additional relevance in that it explains why you would think, hey, let's leave our phones, Tyrone and Max, at Vas's place and just use the girls' phones for the ladies' phones for the home invasion. So I want to be real clear. I'm not pinning any of that on you at all. That's what the state's arguing, but that's why I found that it was relevant. And these convictions are simply proof that conviction, and then it was a first offender finding, which is not a conviction. And then, as you know better than I, that first offender conviction was revoked, and a different judge entered a guilty conviction for burglary at that probation revocation. And all of that is just proof that you were involved with that first home invasion. So there's a whole lot of words. It's actually not that complicated, but you ask a fair question, and I wanted to give a thorough answer.
Yes, I would just object to the relevance and the fact that I wasn't present in that hearing when that motion was ruled upon or argued about, and just for the other side is why that was admitted. I would object to just speculation.
Okay. I will overrule, but I understand your objection as to relevance. I'll overrule the objection as to speculation. I don't think that one is as well placed as the relevance objection. And I want the record to be clear that while you may have chosen not to be present for the hearing, your then lawyer argued very effectively, opposed the state's motion. I ruled against her, not because she had a bad or weak or insufficient argument, but the law is very, very accommodating to the state in Georgia when it comes to admitting other acts evidence through Rule 418. So your objections are noted and preserved and overruled. Mr. Hiles, anything else from the state?
Your Honor.
Ms. Mignot, anything we should talk about before we start the jury process for today?
Just one quick one.
Sure.
Yeah, that's absolutely horrible. That's what I was about to say. When your co-defendant eats a prior conviction for the same thing that you're charged with. These are all the right rulings, by the way. There's nothing you can do about it, but that's just terrible. It's just terrible for your defense. So again, if you're gonna commit a felony,
No, Your Honor.
all right.
Don't
I hesitate to go near this can of worms, but I couldn't help but overhear wait, I didn't get the PowerPoint yet. Have you had an opportunity to look over the changes that I required Mr. Hiles to make, or that he volunteered in certain areas to make, to what we've been calling the Miller PowerPoint? And if you did have an opportunity, even though it may have been just now, are there any concerns? You've preserved all sorts of objections. And when Mr. Hiles tenders that as a demonstrative aid, all you'll need to do is say, I renew my objections. I'm just wondering if there are any new ones so that they don't cause us to have to send the jurors out when Investigator Miller takes the stand and Mr. Hiles tenders whatever exhibit number that's going to be.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm glad the court brought that to my attention.
I'm not, but I needed
It
to.
would have happened before the jury. And we had this in the back.
Yeah.
In efficiency, Mr. Hiles, we had a long discussion with the court that Mr. Hiles was going to send the redacted PowerPoint presentation, so I would have an opportunity to look over it. I think I remember saying, not at 7 a.m. on Monday morning. However, I didn't get it at all. And Mr. Hiles has replaced it, and I object to the one he replaced it with. And he also, instead of removing one, modified it. And that was not the agreement that we were going to modify it. When the court said 15 is out, 20 is out, 21 is out, and if you want to replace 20, you can replace it with something, or whatever you replace it with, you show it to Ms. Mignot, get her the PowerPoint presentation so she can address that. That did not happen. So I object to what he replaced it with, and I object to the modification of the one he kept in.
Okay. I'm going to add a little bit to the record you're making. I have the same recollection as you, that you and I were told that we would get the PowerPoint far, far in advance. I didn't get anything. So apparently it went to a different defense attorney and a different judge. I kept some pretty clear notes. So I'd love to see what we've got now There were certain things that I directed needed to come out, not modify, but come out. It was really, I think, only slide 21, which had the gravestone of a rival gang founder or something that had been defaced. That needed to come out, but I may be misremembering. My notes say these other slides needed to come out. There's only going to be one hybrid slide, not two. I don't remember what slide 20 was, but I have there that it was coming out. But I'm going to turn to you, Mr. Hiles, why don't you, because I don't have the new one, I can't look at it to say, yep, that complies with what we talked about.
I thought it was sent in court forwarded from Mr. Abate, like it was done before that. So if you want, I replaced the slide with the person holding the exotic, talking about exotic snake.
Oh, right. You were going to replace that with, we did discuss that, but what number is that one?
I'm not sure what number it is now.
Well, here, I have the old one, and so we're going to work through that. I'm pulling it up now. So slide 20. Okay, slide 20. I'm going to write reptiles. Slide 20, I had said needs to come out. There was one that just looks like you're in the jungle, and another maybe some rebel in a country, and then a guy with two serious looking guns and a snake. And you said, you know what? I'd like to replace all those with a still from whichever of the two videos that are coming in against Mr. Robinson. And what you represented was you were going to get a still from that. Is that what you did?
Well, yes, but it was a still that was posted through Instagram.
Okay.
So, but yes, I did.
Posted through Instagram by?
It was posted by Slim Santana, but it was taken off of Mr. Robinson's phone.
So it was found on his phone?
Screenshot.
On his phone?
Yes.
Okay. And what's that? Oh, something just came.
I don't, well, we can shorten to make it easier. I'll just take it out. It's not, I don't think it adds anything necessary, and that way there's no objection to preserve. Okay.
I see it. Yes. So it is now 19 in your revised one. Okay. That was the second of the two hybrids. So now we just have hybrid vehicles. So that's consistent. On what is now 20, was 21, that's labeled tagging, you complied with the request, not the request, the direction to remove the gravestone. And so we've got the house that is marked up and the fence. And I understand Ms. Mignot has lodged objections to that. It's a different address, it's an abandoned house. I overruled those. So Ms. Mignot, any other slides? I think you had said there was some other new one. I'm not seeing other new ones in here. It doesn't mean there aren't. But tell me, using page numbers, to which you continue to, I'm sorry, not which you continue to, because you've preserved all your objections. If there are any new objections, now that we've addressed that, what in the new one is numbered 19 is coming out, and that's a different snake picture.
The only issue I had, Your Honor, is that number 21, I understood the court's instructions was that it was out, not that it was modified. The state was supposed to modify that.
You're talking about old 21 with the gravestone?
Yes.
Okay.
That was my understanding when the court said 21 is out. It didn't say 21 is out unless it's modified. So now we have 21 being modified. I would still object to 21 based on the court's ruling that 21 was out. I think we're teetering on trial by ambush when the court issues an instruction that something is out, that we should not interpret that to mean, as counsels of the court, doesn't mean it's out if I change it, if I modify it.
Okay,
So 21 is still an issue for me because I was under the impression that 21 was out. I did know that the court instructed that 20 would be replaced. And the court made that explicitly clear that 20 was gonna be replaced with something else. And before I objected, I should wait and see what it was being replaced with.
Got it.
I know that issue's been resolved because Mr. Howes is saying he's removing it. But 21, I think in fairness, should also be out based on the court's ruling. Everything else is just the same general objection that I believe that this demonstrative is more prejudicial than probative as it pertains to the charges in this case, the facts of this case, and how this case went.
got it. Understood. So I have a different recollection than you. The record will show whatever was discussed last week. But my clear recollection is that I directed Mr. Hiles to modify what was 21 and is now 20 to remove the gravestone, because it started with a question of whose gravestone is that? And if it was just a random citizen, it was definitely coming out. He explained it wasn't, but I still decided that picture should come out. And so I find that Mr. Hiles hasn't ambushed anyone, but has complied with my directive. If for some reason I'm misremembering, I do find that what is now slide 20 was 21 is appropriate and can be part of the demonstrative aid that this PowerPoint is. The question about the reptile slide, which used to be 20 and is now 19, is moot because Mr. Hiles is going to remove 19, which was a replacement, which was the offer he made when I said none of the reptile pictures in what was 20 were acceptable. I misunderstood him and thought he was going to insert a photo from one of the videos in which Mr. Robinson appears, but it doesn't matter because you're going to take 19 out anyway. So I don't need to say anything more about that. And otherwise, I find that you comply with my directions. So you've made your record, Ms. Mignot, and you can renew it when this is tendered simply by saying we renew our earlier objections, and I'll make a clear record of that. Mr. Pritchett, anything you want to add beyond what Ms. Mignot had to say about the revised PowerPoint?
I would like to adopt her objections to it being more prejudice than probative. Yeah, just like you with 19, the hand signs, like there's no photos of me ever throwing a hand sign up, or I just feel like things like that are gonna be prejudice.
Okay.
The extra things surrounding whatever was shown in the photos of me.
All right, got it. You've preserved those objections, and you previously adopted and added a few when we talked about this before. So all that is protected, and you've preserved those. I'm going to allow the presentation as it is, with a reminder to Mr. Hiles that I will be that annoying amusement park person moving the line along if we dilly-dally on slides that don't relate directly to this case for too long. And we'll see how that flows. Ms. Mignot, anything else on behalf of Mr. Robinson?
No, Your Honor, but I do have a separate matter that I'm going to need the court's assistance with. I do have an emergency situation.
Uh-oh, you need to step out?
No, I need the court's assistance with it.
Okay. Let me see what's going on with Mr. Pritchett, and then you and I can, you believe we can talk ex parte?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do that. Mr. Pritchett, is there anything you want to discuss before we bring jurors in? Okay. All right, Ms. Mignot, let's take a quick second, and then let's bring juror 39 in.
Hey, all right, how are you?
Thanks.
Oh, yeah. Can you feel it? In with the love, out with the jive. Have we talked to the juror yet? I got to know what this juror is going to say something like, I got, you know, my mom's birthday or something. There's going to be something silly like that. I can feel it. That's just begging for it, and we all know it. There you go.
Exciting and new.
Hello. 1 second. Everything's good. That actually didn't come from the court. It came from opposing counsel, who didn't handle it well. Apparently it's been reset a couple times because people are busy and life is complicated, but it will be reset because you are unavailable as vouched for by the judge, in front of whom you're appearing right now. So you bet. Sorry to keep you waiting. Just working through an issue.
Don't worry about it.
So you are juror 39. That's the way we're going to refer to you for this discussion. And Deputy Gordon mentioned there was something we needed to talk about.
Well, Your Honor, thank you so much for inviting me to discuss this. So it's a personal matter. On Wednesday, May the 1st, that's my putting ceremony for my master's degree.
Oh my gosh, you need to be there for that.
Yes.
Okay.
It starts at 9 a.m. So I was concerned if the trial does not end on Tuesday as we expect. So we need to just.
Could we all come? If the trial's still going and we pause, could we all watch you get hooded?
Yes.
Where does it happen?
GSU.
Okay. How long do you think that will go?
Well, I think maybe 2 or 3 hours. I'm not sure.
Okay. Know that you will be there. We'll figure out where we are. If we're not done and we need to pause and just start that afternoon, that's a once in a lifetime situation and would definitely qualify as one of those hardships that we had a chance to talk about. But Wednesday was far outside the window we were discussing. So don't worry about that anymore. You will be there for the hooding ceremony. Okay. Thank you for flagging that. That is our alternate, so people know where she falls in the process. All right, unless something changed in the last few minutes, I think I can bring the jurors in now. So seeing no one react otherwise, all right, let me connect that. Hold on one sec. It's a lot of moving parts this morning. The judge was actually on the bench. I don't know why she answered her phone. She's like, hello, what is it? It's like, I have Ms. Mignot hostage. Okay, thank you. We had a rookie setting up the Zoom today, so that's probably what happened. What's on the screen? Is it like art? So it is art. It's like Michelangelo having sculpted something.
Did you?
It was done by someone else, so I will forward it in a moment. Let's see here. Cool.
Oh, I see. I see it. I see it now.
So you got the link?
Yes, we got an email from
Ms. Hansberry. Yes, she is substituting for Ms. Nelson today. So everyone got it?
We have it.
I just got it.
Okay, great. All right, let's bring those jurors in. They must miss us.
All right, the jurors.
Happy Monday, jurors. You look awfully perky for a Monday morning. This is our first Monday with this kind of relationship, because last Monday it was kind of anonymous. You were one of 51 or however many we had. So this is a different Monday. Hope you all had a good weekend doing something other than thinking about this case. I went to the Renaissance Festival with a couple of my kids. One of the new foods there was, it's always on a stick. That's how they do things. And it was s'mores on a stick. And we're intrigued by that. It turns out it's golden grams with like melted marshmallow and chocolate on a stick. It tasted all right.
Oh, sweet
Jesus. Underwhelmed. I thought it'd be like
What?
actual s'more. But that was my way of taking a break from State versus Pritchett and Robinson. You all can be seated, but we're back. The state continues to have only 2 witnesses left. I asked Mr. Howes this morning, any change in that? He said, nope, 2 witnesses. So we will get through those witnesses. The state will rest, and then we'll see where that takes us. Mr. Howes, call your next witness, please.
Call former detective Vincent Vasquez.
And as he is coming in, I need to share with you all that this witness is going to be presenting testimony that, if you credit it in any way, is relevant only to Mr. Pritchett, the accused. Whatever he shares with you should not be considered in any way as to Mr. Robinson. Morning, sir.
Testimony will be able to go through what truth I do. Can you say spell your name for the record?
Vincent Vasquez, Velazquez.
Good morning, Detective Vasquez.
Morning, sir.
I direct your attention to what has already been admitted as State's Exhibit 2. Which wasn't your case.
Atlanta 911 operator 6561. What's the address of your emergency?
1325. Someone's trying to get into my place.
1325 what?
898 Oak Street.
What's the address?
898 Oak Street.
898 Oak Street?
Yes, Unit 13.
Is that 1 minute? 1 minute. Is that northwest or
They're trying
southwest?
to kick my door down.
Northwest or southwest?
Southwest.
And it's unit 1325.
Yes.
Can you see the people?
Yeah, they're
How
kicking
many?
at my
How
door.
many? How many?
Looks like 2.
2 males?
Yeah.
What's your name?
Jose Greer.
Mr. Greer, what's the phone number you're calling me from?
678-314-1245.
678-314-1245. Can you tell, you have any clothing description of either one of the males?
No, black. They look black. I'm on the 3rd floor. I might jump off the balcony.
And they coming through the front door?
Yeah, it's an apartment complex.
Wow.
And you're on the balcony, you said?
3rd floor.
I didn't see this coming.
Please send someone. They kicking the door in, ma'am. They just kick it in.
Wow. That brings it all home. That's powerful stuff.
Detective Vasquez, do you recognize that phone call?
I do.
I didn't recognize that phone call.
That's the 911 call from Mr. Jose Greer that I obtained during my investigation pertaining to a burglary that was occurring while he was in his house.
Okay. Where do you work right now?
I own my own private security consulting firm. I'm retired.
Okay. Where were you working on December 8th of 2015?
Atlanta Police Department.
Okay. And when you worked at the, how many years did you spend in Atlanta Police Department?
22.
Okay. Were you ever part of the cold and complex case division?
I was.
Okay. Is that where you were assigned on December 8th of 2015?
Yes.
Did this, the 911 call that we just heard from Jose Greer, did that come to your desk as part of a complex case?
Yes, it did.
Okay. And what were the complexities of the evidence that required it to go to yourself?
So the date of this call, actually, I received the case the morning after, when I think the precinct detectives were handling the case. And then the fact that the victim jumped off the balcony was unusual, and there were some complexities to that case. They transferred it over to our unit and then assigned it to me. And also the extent of the victim's injuries.
Okay. Was the data in which you used to solve this particular case complex in itself?
Some of it was, yes.
Okay. So let me go back to the date that you were assigned this case. How were you able to start your investigation?
The first thing I did was I went back to the scene and spoke to the manager of the apartment complex. I believe her name was Kimberly Mitchell. From that conversation with her.
Hold on 1 second. There's an objection. Yes, sir.
He's reading up something.
Okay. Mr. Hiles, can you manage that, please?
So, Investigator Vasquez, if you need to refresh your recollection with your case file, you're welcome to do so at that time, but please don't read from it. And I would just ask that if you're not using it, you just close your file and set it to the side.
Okay.
Does Mr. Pritchett have a copy of whatever Detective Velasquez is looking at?
Served one in the motion, but I will give him an identical copy right now as well.
Great. Thank you. Does that leave you without one?
No.
Okay.
And after speaking with Ms. Mitchell, what were you able to determine?
I was able to get surveillance video of what she felt being the manager in relation to the time frame the incident happened with the 911 call that showed 3 Black males entering a pedestrian gate, identifiable from the camera view. I was provided a copy of that video, and at that point, I released that video to the media, asking for the public's assistance and Crime Stoppers to identify those people.
I'm going to show you what has been admitted as State's Exhibit 37. It is a conviction, a first offender plea for Max Pritchett, and then as well the sentencing for the actual adjudication of guilt.
Brooke, we played your song.
You recognize the
beginning. I don't know if you were there.
name of that indictment?
It's a hit.
I do.
Okay. And all of those subjects that you were able to develop as being involved with this burglary, home invasion style burglary of Mr. Greer's apartment?
Yes.
Okay. Will you please read to the jury the names that you identified as being part of this burglary?
Frederick Jamal Clark, VAS Coleman, Max Pritchett, Mark Steven Spencer Jr., and Lil Shay, LILCHE Stafford.
How were you able to develop those names as suspects in this particular investigation?
Through Crime Stopper tips as well as social media.
Okay.
Sir?
On the admission of the exhibit, can there be a specification on what type of adjudication of guilt that was, what type of plea that was?
For you?
Yes.
So two things, it's in the record, so it will say. Two, you'll have an opportunity to cross-examine the witness. So if you feel like something wasn't sufficiently clarified, you'll be able to get this witness to read from the records in the same way he just did when he said, here are the people who were charged. Okay?
Sorry, so you said you first developed over social media. Now, the individuals that you were able to come across that are on that indictment, did any or multiple of those have nicknames that they went by?
Yes.
Okay. What are the names that you recall? Do you recall if Max Pritchett had a nickname?
I do. He had a social media handle. May I refer to my report?
Yes.
And for the record, this is my whole investigative file, my actual report.
We got another question. Did the name Rick Ware ever come up in your investigation?
Yes.
Okay. And how did that name come up in your investigation?
Rick Ware was the defendant's Instagram handle.
Okay. And the defendant being who?
Max Pritchett.
Okay. And do you see Max Pritchett in court today?
I do.
Okay. Would you please stand up and?
What's the objection?
That isn't in the investigation.
So why don't you, should you choose to cross-examine this witness, you'd be able to say, show me where it's in the investigation. But this witness has testified that he associates Rick Ware with, the jurors heard what he had to say about Rick Ware and you. So back to you, Mr. Hiles.
Okay. So you testified that Rick Ware was the Instagram handle. Did Max Pritchett have an actual different name for his Twitter? Do you recall?
He did.
Okay. And do you recall what the Twitter name was for Max Pritchett in this case?
It was Sartorial Savage.
Those were two separate social media accounts, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What about Vas Coleman? Do you recall any nicknames that Vas Coleman would have had?
Young Bands.
Young Bands?
BANS.
Okay. Now, were you able, at any point in time, did cell site location information or call detail records ever become a part of your investigation?
Yes.
Okay. And how did they become a part of your investigation?
I was able to get phone records for the defendant on trial today as well, and then transfer that information to one of our cell phone experts within the unit, was able to track those cell phone records using cell tower data and triangulate that location that coincided with the location of where the crime occurred around the time the crime occurred.
Okay. Now, did everybody that's on that indictment play the same role in this burglary of Jose Greer?
No.
Okay. Please tell the jurors what role, and if you need to look at the indictment that's in evidence, you're more than welcome to read from that. But tell the jurors by name and what role each individual played in this particular burglary.
This particular case, 5 suspects showed up at Mr. Greer's location. The 5 individuals that I named earlier: Mark Spencer, Frederick Clark, as well as Lachey Stafford, left the vehicle and actually went to the victim's door and were trying to get in and kick the door in eventually. The defendant, Max Pritchett, and Vas Coleman stayed in the car.
Okay. And through the course of your investigation, were you ever able to determine why Vas Coleman and Pritchett did not actually go into the apartment complex?
My investigation revealed that the group felt that Vas Coleman was too young. He was, I believe, 16 at the time. And the defendant, Max Pritchett, had an injured foot, and it was decided that he'd stay in the car because of that.
Okay. Was Mr. Pritchett determined to be the driver?
That's correct, he was.
Okay. So, Mr. Pritchett drove Voss Coleman as well as the other 3 individuals to the incident location. And is that your testimony?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And as they got out and actually made entry, is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, was there ever any property taken from this incident that you were able to track down?
Yes.
Okay. How were you able to track down that property?
So what was taken in the burglary was the victim's wallet, a work laptop, a work iPad, and a work cell phone, an iPhone. Victim worked for Comcast. Through my investigation, I was able to recover the laptop and this iPhone. The wallet surfaced later through my investigation, where one of the defendants, Lachey Stafford, displayed the victim's ID, and the person he displayed the victim's ID to, and the wallet and credit cards, had seen the Crime Stopper story and recognized the photo
I would never.
of the victim, and then reached out to me.
Okay. Were you ever, what was the date of this crime again?
December 8th, 2015.
And did you ever, well, how central to the investigation was the call detail records and the cell site location information?
Very essential. It allowed me to actually look at the suspects' cell phones that they had in their possession and triangulate that and actually put them at the crime scene.
Okay. And were you able to do so for all of the defendants that were charged?
I believe so. Okay. I believe all 5.
Okay. And did that reinforce what you had uncovered and believed to be so from the rest of your investigation?
It certainly corroborated a lot of the other information that I received, yes.
And there's call detail records and cell site location information. Is that something that you would have, or that you did compile and place in your investigative file?
Yes.
And is your investigative file more than just this 40-page report?
Oh yes, it's 3-ring binder, probably that thick.
Okay. And was those records part of the file that would have been turned over to the district attorney's office for the prosecution of this case?
Yes.
I know there was a lot more that went into this, but is this the absolute abbreviated version of what's going on throughout the course of the investigation?
Very, very abbreviated, yes.
All right, I don't have any other questions for this detective.
All right. Ms. Mignot, do you have any questions for retired Detective Vasquez?
Very brief.
Good morning, Detective Vasquez.
Good morning.
As it pertains to your investigation and your involvement in the December 8th, 2015 case, my client, Mr. Tyrone Robinson, had absolutely no involvement in that case, correct?
Never heard his name mentioned.
Thank you. Nothing further.
And turning to the accused, sir, do you have questions for the witness?
Yes.
Great. Come to the podium, please.
Greetings, Mr. Vasquez. How are you doing today, sir?
Good, sir. Thank you.
With the exhibit that the state just handed you, I believe it was a plea agreement. Can you read on there, if you can find it, the specification of that plea, like what type of plea specified on there that was taken by me?
Okay, if you just allow me a minute to read through it.
So I think the question is, and I'm not in any way putting words in your mouth, but we call them final dispositions. So ultimately the case was resolved, and part of what Mr. Hiles tendered as states 37, and I think it's going to be about the next document he's going to get to, is that initial final disposition, which it sounds like involved the plea, but we'll let the witness look at it. One more page, and there's a final disposition. All right. So if there's a part of, you've got it too, if he's looking at the same page, if there's part of it you want him to look at.
Actually, I don't have it.
Okay, it's in your stack.
Not in there. I don't have that copy or that final disposition.
Okay, how do we get one for the witness, for the questioner to look at, Mr. Hiles? So there can be one in front of the witness and one for Mr. Pritchett to have.
Would you like to look at the original certified?
Appreciate it.
And we're at the final disposition.
Okay. Okay, here it is. Okay. Looking at that final disposition, Mr. Vasquez, you should see that box in the middle of the page, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, next to count 2, if you go over to your right, past the OCGA numbers, what does that disposition say?
First offender, Alfred.
Do you know what an Alfred plea is?
I'm not an attorney, and I don't think I'm qualified to instruct the jury what an Alfred plea is. That would be for an attorney to explain to the jury, not me.
Mr. McBurney, can you instruct the jury what an Alfred plea is?
Object. It's not a question.
Probably not my role right now, but there may be an opportunity for you to get that in front of the jury through different means. But this witness has said he's not the right one to talk about an offered plea.
Okay. So in all your years of experience, you don't know that Alfred plea means that you maintain your innocence. You don't know that.
So it would be improper for me as a non-lawyer to offer advice or an opinion on a legal conclusion of what an Alfred plea is. I'm a detective, not an attorney.
Now, on this case in 2016 that you investigated, well, first, let me go back. You said you've been a detective for 22 years, correct?
Well, I was a police officer for 22 and a detective for 17.
Now, when you go to the process of charging individuals or suspects to a crime, that's on your discretion, correct?
So charging and arresting are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
So my job is to look for what's called probable cause, and that's gathering enough evidence that's sufficient to support the arrest and the charge of, in this case, burglary. So the decision would be up to me once I feel that there is enough probable cause, and then I present that evidence to a judge, and the judge has to agree to sign the warrant.
Okay, so in specification, in that investigation of 2016, that led you to charge me as a party to a crime, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And according to your investigation, you charged me as a party of a crime specifically because you believed, according to your investigation, that I was the supposed getaway driver.
That was part of it. There were other aspects of your involvement that I have not testified to this jury about yet, but that's part of it, being the driver, yes.
So what was the main part of why you charged me with party to a crime?
So I would have to read the warrant to be specific, but my recollection right now, there was a piece of it where co-defendant testimony, co-defendant information, cooperating co-defendant, Frederick Clark, as you're aware of, provided information that you were part of the planning process of this at the house that you rented with Mark Spencer on Mitchell Street. You were part and parcel to the planning phase.
Yes, I don't have an ice bucket.
That, along with
the
physical
best I
evidence
can
that
do.
put you at the crime scene, as well as just other evidence that shows that you were part of this as far as being present.
Okay, and you remember getting statements from Voss Coleman too, correct?
I do.
Okay. And you recall him stating in contradiction to Mr. Clark that there was no planning at that location.
I'd have to read the transcript from the statement from Mr. Coleman. I don't recall exactly what Mr. Coleman said.
Do you have that in front of you on your investigative notes?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. So what did Mr. Clark state to you that I helped plan? Like what would he say was my involvement in the planning? What was said by me that suspected my help in planning? What was said by me in that plan?
I don't recall exactly, but the gist of the conversation was there was a guy named Cash who the target of the burglary that was a drug dealer, and that this conversation took place at your apartment where you and Mark Spencer lived, in either your room or Mr. Spencer's room, I can't recall which one, and that the plan was hatched that all 5 of you would participate in breaking into the drug dealer's home. Unfortunately, they got the wrong apartment, and that you were part and parcel to the conversation of where it was, the location of where the apartment
Wrong
was,
apartment.
the complex.
Come
it was called
on.
Skylofts, and that you willingly went with that group, waited in the car, knowing that they were going to go in and break into the apartment.
Okay. And I was the getaway driver.
Well, I don't know if the word getaway driver was used, but you were the driver.
You don't recall in your warrant you specifying that I was the supposed getaway driver?
I could have written that. I just don't recall. Okay. And if I did write that, then that was what was stated by Mr. Clark.
Okay.
Yes, let's relitigate a case that you already lost and give all the details to the jury. A case that is very similar to the one that you're charged with right now. It's almost like him representing himself was a bad idea.
Now, do you recall, because you do recall a statement from Voss Coleman, correct? In part of your investigation.
I remember Voss Coleman gave a statement. I just don't recall exactly.
You don't have these papers in front of you?
I do. If you want to refer me to what page?
Believe doesn't have page numbers on it, but it is
should be at the bottom of the page number, right under the date.
36. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
36.
So you're asking the witness to read page 36 to refresh his recollection about what Voss Coleman said?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. And what was your question, sir?
Okay. Pardon me. Please pardon me. Please pardon me.
Certainly.
If we can actually just go back to 26 first,
26.
just so I can keep an order of things.
Okay, I'm there.
Now you see in that first sentence where Clark states in his statement that he transported Spencer, Pritchett, Stafford, and Coleman to the location in his black Honda car.
Objection. You can't read from the.
Right, so you don't read it,
Okay,
you just,
I'm sorry.
indicate, okay, indicate to the witness what section you want him to read. When he's done reading it, then we'll see if that has refreshed his recollection.
Can you read that second sentence? Starts off with the letter Clark. I mean, the word Clark. Second sentence.
Second says Clark transported Spencer, Pritchett, Stafford, and Coleman to the
Objection. You can refresh your.
You can't read.
Right, so I'm sorry, I thought this, we'd done this, but it was with a different witness. So a lawyer questioning you can put anything he or she wants in front of you to read to yourself, not out loud. And then when you're done reading whatever part the questioner has said, hey, look at this, when you're done reading it to yourself, then look back up, and then the questioner will say, all right, did that refresh your recollection? And you say, yes, it did, and this is what Voss said, or nope, I read those words, but I don't remember that having happened. So have you read the part that Mr. Pritchett wanted you to read?
I have.
All right, what's your question?
So after refreshing your memory, it's correct to say that Clark is the one that transported individuals to that location during that incident, correct?
He did in his car, correct.
Now, can we please go to page 36? Just want to refresh your memory.
Okay.
Can you read that fourth sentence that starts off with Coleman said?
Read to yourself.
On page 36?
Yes, sir. Fourth sentence that says Coleman said that he.
Are you sure you're on page 36? 'Cause I don't see that.
What are the first two words at the top of the page? You can read those out loud. You.
To speak.
Yes, that's the page I'm on. So after that period right there at present, go down 1, 2, 3. So it'll be the third sentence from that period at the top. Where it starts off, it says Coleman said.
Okay, for the record, it's the sixth sentence down from the top.
That's okay, as long as you found one that fits that description.
Make sure we're on the same.
Yeah, if you'll read it, and then we'll see what Mr. Pritchett wants.
Sorry about that. I only saw 3 periods.
No worries, sir. I've read it.
Okay.
I don't know how to read.
Now, according to Coleman's statement, now that you refreshed your memory,
So you don't want to read the statement.
I don't want to read.
So does that refresh your recollection about what Coleman said?
Does that refresh your recollection of what Coleman said after reading it?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay. Now you can confirm that according to Coleman, once 3 individuals left that vehicle, him and Max went to Wendy's to get food?
Is the question, could I confirm that?
Can you confirm that?
No, that was not confirmed. In fact, there's a video that exists showing those defendants going to Mark Spencer, Frederick Clark, and Lachey Stafford going to a Krispy Kreme donut shop.
Yeah, but I'm not referring to them. According to Coleman, after the individuals left the vehicle, correct? according to Coleman, where did Coleman and Max go after they left that vehicle?
Well, I don't know. So the evidence of the entire investigation shows that Max Pritchett and Voss Coleman remained there, and then the other three defendants jumped the wall after the burglary and got in the car and they left. Voss Coleman, according to his statement, stated that you and he went to Wendy's.
Okay.
That was I was unable to corroborate that at all.
Okay.
There was no evidence to support that statement.
So in your investigation, Voss Coleman didn't show you a video, or I don't know if it was you specifically, but it was detectives in the interrogation room that he did get food from Wendy's and he happened to have a video showing that food.
So don't answer the question yet. Yes, sir.
It's not a question, he's talking about facts outside of that.
So make sure you're asking questions rather than trying to introduce evidence by saying, hey, isn't, there's this or that. So what's your question for Detective Vasquez?
So according to Coleman, Max and him went to Wendy's to get food, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So we know, according to your investigation, that Max didn't drive anybody to the crime scene, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And according to your investigation, after the incident occurred, the three individuals that were supposedly entered that apartment, once they exited that apartment, they ran to a Krispy Kreme, correct? According to your investigation?
So I don't recall whether they ran or were driven there. They ended up at the Krispy Kreme.
Can you go to page 27 to please refresh your memory?
What part of 27? And if you go by line number rather than sentence,
you're right.
that's easier. Just count down lines and you don't have to worry about periods.
It starts on
Since you don't
line 2, the end of line 2.
And how much do you want them to read? The whole page, or
we can just read read all the way down to line 6.
I've read it.
Okay. So now, after your memory has been refreshed,
Planet Fitness should come along as well.
How did Clark and the other individuals get to Krispy Kreme?
They ran on foot.
Okay. And now, after these individuals arrived at Krispy Kreme, what did Clark state that they did at Krispy Kreme?
I don't recall.
Okay. You don't recall Clark stating that I don't see it on this page either. You know what? Okay.
They had the rendezvous in the women's locker room.
Once at Krispy Kreme, according to Clark's statement, it was realized that he had to still get to his final destination, correct?
It was realized.
Who are you referring to?
Clark.
Yes.
And okay.
Answer is yes.
Now at Krispy Kreme, according to your investigation, how did Clark and the other individual with him get to their final destination?
They took an Uber on Clark's account.
So Clark didn't call me, the supposed getaway driver, and call me to pick him up from Krispy Kreme?
So while Mr. Greer is on the phone with 911,
that was a yes or no. It was yes or no. Did he call me to pick him up from Krispy Kreme and to take him to his final destination?
No, that was an open-ended
So
question.
witnesses can explain their answers. So at some point there'll be a yes or no, or I don't know, or maybe, but the witnesses are always allowed to explain their answers.
Stuff you should know, dummy.
Continue on, sir.
So according to Clark, as the call went over 911. As they're running out, there's an Atlanta police officer entering the complex responding to the call. That was corroborated by a witness that was standing in the parking lot. And according to Clark, once that happened, the original plan was for this defendant to be the driver. But once that happened, they all scattered and their plans changed. Krispy Kreme was never in the plan to go there. So none of that happened, and there was no call to you. There was no record of a call from Mr. Clark to you, to answer your question, to pick you up. Whether there was or, I don't know what, if there was a call, what it would be for, but there was no record of a call immediately to you. I don't know if that answers your question.
I mean, if there was a call, the reason would for the call to me would be, since I was this planned supposed getaway driver.
Objection, speculation.
You can finish the question, but if it's asking this witness to say, yeah, maybe that's what you guys were thinking, he can't speculate as to what the plan may have been, unless someone told him what the plan was.
So was it ever stated specifically in Clark's or Coleman's statement that I was the supposed getaway driver?
I believe not in Coleman's statement, but in Clark's statement, I believe, yes, that you were to remain in the car with Mr. Coleman and drive when he got back.
He said specifically that I was supposed to drive when he got back.
I'm not sure if the word getaway driver was used or driver, but there was conversation that encompassed that thought process.
Page 26. Have you read it?
The whole page or a certain line?
Line 6, 7, line 5, 6, 7.
Yes.
Okay, now I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, are those the lines from Clark's statement that caused investigators to think that I was the supposed getaway driver?
So this report that you're reading doesn't encompass anybody's complete statement. I chose what to include in here, knowing that the statement itself is available for reference.
Okay.
So this doesn't encompass Mr. Clark's entire statement.
Okay.
It's not a verbatim recordation of what Mr. Clark said when you were talking with him.
That is correct. It is not.
So you chose to leave out that Clark told you or detectives that I was supposed to be the getaway driver. You chose to leave that information out of the investigation report.
There's a lot of what Mr. Clark said in his statement. Probably, in fact, he gave two statements. And I believe the first one is over an hour long. So it is not common for me or any other detective to verbatim write in my report what that witness or suspect says. It's referred to as a brief encounter. So my job is to document the encounter, the witness or the suspect statement. This one happened to be with his attorney. And then also indicate that that statement is available in the file for review. So it's not a matter of what I choose. It's more of documenting what I need to document that statement occurred. And then we have the affidavit for the warrant, which may be a little more specific as to the defendant's involvement based on what another witness, another suspect may have said.
So again, you chose not to document that Clark stated that Max was supposed to be the getaway driver.
Well, if it's not in here, then yes.
Okay. But you believe that in his statement that he said specifically that Max was supposed to be the getaway driver.
Again, as I testified to earlier, I don't recall if he actually said those words or the word getaway driver was used, but the gist of that conversation was that you were to drive away.
Specifically,
I can't tell you verbatim what he said
the
without the
driver.
statement in front of me, without looking at the entire statement.
I thought the gist of what he said was that I had a hurt leg or foot, so I decided to stay in the car.
Stop. Don't read from the report. You can summarize it, but make sure you're not reading to the jury from the report.
Is the gist of what he said that I was supposed to be the getaway driver, or was the gist of what he said was that I was supposed to stay in the car because I had a hurt foot?
So I don't know what you mean by gist, first of all.
Gist, I mean,
Let me finish, sir. Let me finish.
Okay.
Let me finish my testimony. When I write my report, what I reference is that a statement was taken, and it's always, the statement itself is always available for everyone to review, knowing that the prosecutor is going to get it, and then in discovery, you would get it. So I'm not required, again, to write down everything that a suspect or a witness says verbatim. So I can't testify to what the gist is. I understand what gist means. I can't testify to what my intention was for the gist. I documented what I felt I needed to document on that particular statement. The rest is available for review in the actual statement itself.
Okay, and so it's correct to say that you felt that you shouldn't have documented that Clark stated that Max was the getaway driver.
Objection, asked and answered.
We've covered it. Let's go to a different area.
All right. Okay, so now, according to your investigation, Clark gets an Uber from Krispy Kreme to 836 Mitchell Street, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, once arriving at their final destination, Clark and another individual realized, did Clark and another individual realize that they had left stolen items stashed somewhere, according to your investigation?
Clark, I believe, and Spencer did, yes.
And they realized that once at their final destination, that they had actually left some stashed items that they have retrieved.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
According to your investigation, it's correct that, again, Clark and Spencer, once at the final destination of 836 Mitchell Street, realized that they had left stolen items that they needed to retrieve, correct?
They intentionally, according to Clark, stashed the book bag with the stolen items, yes.
Now, did they ever go back and get those stolen items?
Yes.
How did they go get those stolen items?
They were transported by a person, his first name was Corey. I don't recall his last name. It's in my report. If you need it, you can direct me to it. But he then arrived in his own vehicle and transported them back to the location, which is literally right near the crime scene, and retrieved the bag with the stolen items.
So Clark and Spencer didn't call Max? Didn't call me?
I don't recall what calls were taking place without the phone records in front of me. But as far as it being transported to pick up that bag of stolen property, it was a person named Corey that did that.
So it's safe to say that I didn't drive anybody from that crime scene to any other location, nor did I drive anybody after the fact to retrieve any stolen items that might have came from that crime scene location, correct?
Correct.
So according to your investigation, in Coleman's statement, the only driving that I did was after the alleged assailants leaving that vehicle. According to your investigation in Coleman's statement, the only driving that I did was go to Wendy's to get food, correct?
According to Coleman, that's what he stated. I was unable to verify whether that happened or not.
But was there any other evidence that I drove any of the assailants after the fact, during or before the fact, to any location having to do with the crime scene?
No.
Okay. So there is, according to your investigation, there was no evidence that I aided or abetted in this crime in any way, was there?
Oh, there was. That's why I arrested you.
What was that evidence?
It's in the affidavit, sir. I had signed an affidavit, swore to it in front of a judge.
You don't.
Let him finish his answer.
Okay,
You can follow up.
So, and again, I've testified the fact that co-defendant gave information that you were part of the planning phase of this. The fact that, and Judge, I'm trying to be careful what I say that's in because there is other evidence that supported your arrest that I don't think it would be proper for me to testify to. That was part of the affidavit that met the standard of probable cause for your arrest.
Does someone have a copy of the affidavit that I can look at?
Oh, good Lord.
It's not, I guess that wouldn't be part of your file. As a result of your file, you get the affidavit.
Absolute train wreck.
You've got it there?
I do not have it with me, but it's part of the main file that I turned over.
Okay.
Again, it's pretty
big
file.
No, I understand.
And again, I'm just trying to be careful with
No, I appreciate that too. That's why if I could see the affidavit, I could help us navigate this.
Understood.
No affidavit.
I'm not the one with the evidence, so I don't know if you've got a copy of the affidavit. I'm looking to Mr. Hiles, and we'll see what happens. Why don't you ask a different question? If you've got any more, if not, I'm happy to wait to get my hands on the affidavit.
From what your recollections brings up to you, what other evidence are you referring to?
So that's where I don't want to be prejudicial towards you, and I'm trying to be careful with what I say. I don't think it would be.
So, Mr. Pritchett, remember, I made a ruling there. There's one part of this case that the burglary case that we're talking about that I've excluded, and the detective, I think, is wanting to make sure he doesn't get into that space, and I excluded it for your benefit, not the state's benefit.
You're right. I was just trying to see the evidence directly towards.
Your question is a perfectly appropriate one. I think the detective is just leery of, in saying something, it gets into the area that I concluded wasn't sufficiently relevant to this case for it to come in. But it would be great if I had a copy of that affidavit and I could help.
I know it's.
I would.
Cross-exam. Can I just inquire if you're talking about the arrest warrants? Is that the affidavit?
Yes, and I want to be careful. I'd like to read it as well.
Sure, and that's what I'm assuming is the affidavit for the arrest warrant.
I may be able to help. I think I may have a copy on my Dropbox that I could maybe, if I'm allowed.
I can't tell from reading Mr. House's body language if he's found it or he's a good poker player. He's just looking at the screen. It's there, it's not there. So if he sends it to me, I'll print it out and I'll print 3 copies. So one for Mr. Hiles, one for the accused, and one for you to look at as a recollection refresher.
One PDF with all of the arrest warrants.
Okay, here it is.
I think the affidavits are all gonna be
The same. I was just making sure of that. All right, it'll pop out on the printer in a minute. Do you have other questions, or really where you're wrapping up is with this affidavit?
Yeah, pretty much that affidavit. That's what
Okay,
I'm wrapping up.
you can hear it coming right now.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hiles.
The wheels of justice are going to roll you right into the Wayne County Jail.
Here's one for you.
Thank you, sir. Sure.
Hey, Gordon, here's one for Mr. Pritchett. Mr. Hiles.
Let me know when you refresh, Joe.
Okay. I'm ready.
I'm ready to, you can go.
Okay,
So repeat your question because we had a little bit of a break.
yeah, we did, wow, kind of forgot it myself. Let's go back to, because you, let me just restate this again. So the evidence that caused you and your department to charge me as a suspect to this crime is that I participated in the planning of the crime?
The planning of the crime, your presence at the crime scene, and then your actions after the crime occurred. From information received from Mr. Clark, as far as hiding out at a Motel 6. Some corroboration through Uber records supported that statement from Mr. Clark. Your Uber records in particular, that actually
That I was hiding out at a Motel 6?
Well, it shows you taking a car from 836 Mitchell Street to the address where Motel 6 exists. So that's corroboration to what Mr. Clark says.
So was I hiding out at Motel 6? Did I get a?
I don't know if you were there or not. I know you ordered an Uber to that location the day after the homicide.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the day after the case.
Okay. Where was I arrested at?
In the Bronx, New York.
Now, where was Lachey Stafford arrested at?
Lachey Stafford was arrested, I believe, at the airport in Denver, Colorado. I think you were with him at the time.
And I wasn't arrested then, though, correct?
You were not. I didn't have an arrest warrant for you at that point.
Okay, so what was that specific evidence?
I just didn't
that
have a
you
warrant
needed
yet.
to get an arrest warrant?
In the time that Lachey Stafford was arrested, I'm not sure where I was in the
So-
investigation. And for the record, there was 5 defendants, and I was piecing it together piece by piece. So obviously the evidence that I felt supported an arrest came after that. In fact, when Lachey Stafford was arrested, I had information that he was catching that flight. So I sent our fugitive unit to Denver Airport to pick him up, not knowing you would be with him. And they called me to ask about you. And I specifically told them to let him go, because I do not have a warrant for him. And I think it was shortly after that date that I obtained the warrant. And later, we found you at your uncle's house in the Bronx, New York.
Okay. So just for clarification, the only thing that caused you to place charges on me as a suspect to this crime is because it is alleged by Clark that I was part of the planning process of this crime.
Well, part of what I was able to determine is that none of the 5 defendants, including yourself, had any relation to Skyloft Apartments, to the victim, Mr. Greer, anyone that lived there. You were there. You were at that location when this crime occurred, and co-defendants admitted their participation in it. Your phone record supported that. Testimony from your co-defendant, Mr. Clark, that you were part and parcel to the planning phase of this beforehand. And then part of what we consider evidence is flight after a crime occurs. And we were able to determine that you, through corroborating your Uber records, went to a motel, as Mr. Clark stated, to hide out. And at some point, ended up in New York City with your uncle. So that's the evidence. Your phone records, co-defendant testimony, and ultimately pled guilty.
So under Alfred, which is what to maintain my innocence. But again, none of that flight information that you're suspecting me of is in this affidavit, correct? Because you said I was
It's in my
I was
report.
flight, but it wasn't in your affidavit though, correct?
No, it's
It
in my
wasn't in your
report.
affidavit for the arrest warrant.
It is not needed for that. My warrant, the probable cause that I presented was sufficient. And not everything goes into an affidavit. I put in what I need, what I feel is sufficient to support an arrest. And many times there's way more evidence that I put in the affidavit. A judge has to read it. I have to be mindful of a judge's time, so try to keep my affidavits to the point. So although it's not in the affidavit, it's still evidence.
But this is the affidavit that supported your arrest for me, correct?
Correct.
So on your affidavit that supported the arrest for me, what supported your arrest for me?
So we've covered that now.
And specifically on the affidavit, we haven't.
So this witness has now testified every which way about what he thought supported probable cause, what was in the affidavit. You've highlighted some things that he indicated that weren't in the affidavit, but also supported your connection to the case. So I'm going to ask you to move to a different area now, if you've got a different area.
I'm just trying to make a point, sir.
I understand the point you're making, and my point is you've made your point. So it's time to make a different point.
So is it possible, according to your investigation and the statements that you received from Clark and Coleman, is it possible that the plan that you say I participated in for this crime was that once the other three assailants got out that car that night, the plan was for me and Coleman to get food? Could that have possibly been the plan of what was supposed to happen that night?
According to the evidence that I've gathered, no.
Why is that a no, sir?
Well, sir, this case could have gone to trial, and I think that would have been for a different jury to make that decision. So I stand on what my evidence is, what my investigation revealed, and what the probable cause was for your arrest. That's all I can testify to.
But if the only evidence that you're relying on to say that is that you have phone records that put me in the scene of that crime, which corroborates what Clark and Coleman said. But what they also said is that I left that crime scene to go get food at Wendy's, which was right in that area of that crime scene.
So, Mr. Pritchard, we're again going around in a little bit of circles. You are going to have an opportunity to argue to the jury if you think it's relevant to, of course, the case we're here for, which is Wiley Street and not Oak Street. If you think there were some deficiencies in the Oak Street case, you can talk to the jury about that. But Detective Vasquez has now said 3 or 4 times what he's got to say about the work he did on that.
Are you familiar with this case, with this present case?
I am not.
Okay. No further questions, Judge.
Mr. Hiles, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Any questions from the jurors? Thank you.
Well, that was craptacular. Do we actually have questions from the jurors?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have you take your morning break right now. I'll cover these with the parties. We'll bring you back out and we'll have Investigator Vasquez answer the proper questions. Don't talk about the case back in the jury room, no outside research. We'll see you in a moment. All right, Mr. Hiles, if you would grab these, share them with Ms. Mignot and Mr. Pritchett. Nope. Thanks. Thank you. So we'll discuss these real briefly, and then I'll give everyone a quick break before we bring the jurors back in. I will not ask question 69, which is an inquiry about the nature of the victim's injuries. I will explore with investigator what he knows or can tell from states 37, which may need to come back to him, about whether there was a trial and the outcome for Mr. Pritchett. I'll ask the question about Clark and his car and a firearm and what's the answer, if you know, Mr. Hiles, to the question about gang activity?
So I don't think it's, I was gonna bring another person involved in the investigation to talk about some of the gang activity.
That would be a witness you didn't tell us about.
No, it was Liam Packer and Denise are both.
No, meaning you said you have two witnesses
I'm not
left.
gonna, but what I'm saying is I opted not to do it because of the pace of the trial, and I didn't find it to be necessary.
Okay, but is this someone who can answer that question?
I have to ask.
I guess we'll ask him. Do you have any objection to that question?
No, I mean.
Okay. Ms. Mignot, did you have any objection to any of the questions other than the one I'm not asking about the nature of the injuries?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay. Hey, I need to talk to Mr. Pritchett first. Mr. Pritchett, did you have an objection to any of the questions other than the one about the nature of the injuries to the victim?
To the gang related question.
You have an objection to that? What's your objection?
That in the evidence of their case, that word gang never used.
Was it,
I think it's already been answered.
I don't have the indictment in front of me.
There was no gang charges alleged. It was stuff that was discovered post adjudication.
Okay, then I won't ask it. So there'll be two I don't ask, one nature of the injuries and then the thing about gang activity. Otherwise, I'll ask the questions. All right, let's take a quick break and then we'll wrap up with investigator.
We'd be happy to know that investigator Miller just texted me. He said he's trying to make this fast.
Your Honor, can we get a time on this break? Is it a 3 minute, 2 minute, 1 minute?
4.
4 minutes.
More than you asked for.
For the indictment question, what
I will guide you.
Okay.
There will not be, you don't have to guess around. All right, Ms. Rivers, are you ready? Mr. Hiles, anything before, well, let's get back on the record in State versus Pritchett and Robinson. Anything, Mr. Hiles, before we bring the jurors back in?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Mignot?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Pritchett?
I would just ask for a mistrial. I believe he said homicide.
He did, and then switched it, and wisely, no lawyer or you drew any attention to that. So I'm going to deny your motion for a mistrial. I am finding that to have been an inadvertent misstep by the witness, who otherwise was very scrupulously adhering to my ruling, to the point where he was unwilling to get into the contents of the affidavit without having it in front of him, because he was worried he might cross the line. So, number one, I don't find it was anything prompted by the state. It was in response to one of your questions, not Mr. Hiles's. I don't think it was something that the witness held up his sleeve until an opportune moment in a narrative answer where he could slide that in, but that it was unintentional and quickly corrected, and no one drew any attention to it after it was quickly corrected. So I understand your motion, and it preserves your concern, so that if there is an appeal, you or someone arguing any appeal on your behalf will be able to challenge my ruling that denies the mistrial. Now, I'm going to offer up an alternative remedy, but think about it before you say, yes, that's what I want you to do. I would be willing to, I just don't think it's a good idea, to tell the jurors, you may have heard the detective describe the crime in a certain way. I can even say, you heard him use the word homicide. You should disregard that. That's not what this case is about. The reason why I'm cautioning you is that will draw their attention back to it insofar as any juror even remembers that he said those words. But if your concern is that the word homicide is going to linger on the minds of the jurors, then I'm happy to tell them that they should disregard the use of the word. It was used in error, that the witness quickly corrected himself, and it inaccurately describes the case as they are to consider it. So I can give that curative instruction, but you should just weigh whether you want that against that necessarily draws attention to something that I don't think was particularly remarkable during the course of Vasquez's many, many, many answers to your many, many questions. What are your thoughts on that? Okay, so I will not give a curative instruction. I gave you that opportunity and you're saying no thank you. I understand why you'd say no thank you. I need to include the other two lawyers in the conversation. Mr. Hiles, do you have anything you want to add about the motion for mistrial, which I've denied, and the offer for a curative instruction?
I don't have anything, well, what I would want to add, there wasn't a simultaneous objection to that statement. Secondly, I would note, although I think you made a record of it, that those questions would have been brought out, essentially those answers, that was brought out by the questioning of the defendant himself, which I think, being what evidence you have, opens the door that he could have tied it in. I think he did a good job not to, but if some of that stuff that he was asking about was unexplainably tied to evidence of the homicide, and so it was just inadvertent.
Okay, so I agree with you that it was inadvertent. I disagree with you that Mr. Pritchett in some way opened the door, but it was inadvertent. That's how I view this. You make a good point that I didn't, and that is that, and the record will show it, but there was no contemporaneous objection insofar as that might affect appeals later on. The first I am hearing of Mr. Pritchett's concern about the use of the word homicide is now after he had finished his cross-examination. Ms. Mignot, anything you want to add to this discussion?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, let's bring the jurors in, please.
All right, so jurors.
Thank you, Deputy Gordon. Everyone else can be seated. We're back from the morning break, and I've got a few questions based on juror questions for Detective Vasquez, and we'll go from there. Sir, was there any evidence you uncovered of a firearm being used in connection with the burglary home invasion that you investigated?
No.
How did Mr. Clark get his car back, if that makes sense? Because it seems like he was separated from his car at some point. Was that something your investigation revealed, or one of the unsolved mysteries?
So his car made it back to 836 Mitchell Street, presumably driven by the defendant, and he was able to get his keys back and take back possession of his vehicle.
You should have States 37 in front of you. Are you able to tell from the final disposition, the first final disposition, if Mr. Pritchett went to trial or if he resolved his part of the case by way of a plea?
He pleaded to the case.
Okay, and we've heard this is an offered plea, whatever that means, but it's still a plea rather than a trial.
That's correct.
Okay. And does the final disposition, the first final disposition, indicate what he was sentenced to?
Yes. 10 years to serve, 2 years commuted to time served, balance of 8 years on probation.
Now, is there a second final disposition for Mr. Pritchett?
There is.
And when was that one, and what was that?
Perhaps you can help me, Judge. Am I looking at the?
So that's the first one. Is that the 10 served 2? So keep going. One more there. So same case. Is that same case number for Mr. Pritchett?
Yes.
And then what's the date of that second final disposition?
Date of this final?
It's a big box that says received at the top.
February 10th. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong. Is that filed in office?
Yes.
February 10th, 2020.
Okay. And the disposition was changed. What was the new disposition?
For burglary in the first degree guilty, 20 years to serve.
All right. Mr. Hiles, do you have any questions for for Investigator Vasquez based on that exchange?
Yes, so, in reference to the question about the car, was it Mr. Clark's statement that it was Mr. Pritchett who took possession of Mr. Clark's car at the location of the burglary?
Yes.
Okay. And was Mr. Pritchett supposed to drive everybody afterwards?
According to Mr. Clark, yes.
Okay. And I believe you said it was it also said by Mr. Clark that this plan was disrupted because of the quick response of police?
Yes.
Okay. And would that presumably be from the 911 call we heard of Mr. Greer as this was taking place?
It would, yes.
Okay. And did the SovCit location information match up with what Mr. Clark told you about who was to take the car, where it started from, and where it ended up?
Yes, the cell site location tracked from 836 Mitchell Street to the incident location and then back to 836 Mitchell Street.
That's all the questions I have.
Ms. Mignot, anything more for Detective Vasquez?
No, Your Honor.
And sir, the accused, any questions based on the exchange that I just had with Detective Vasquez?
According to Mr. Clark's statement in your investigation, did I drive any of those assailants that went to that apartment from that crime scene?
No. No, they took an Uber.
And after the fact, when Clark was at Krispy Kreme and he had a chance to call the supposed getaway driver, who did he call to get to 836 Mitchell Street?
I can't testify who he had a chance to call. That would be a question for him.
How did he get to 836 Mitchell Street?
He used an Uber.
And once at 836 Mitchell Street, he realized he had to go back to the crime scene to retrieve stolen goods. Who did he call to retrieve those stolen goods?
I testified a person named Corey.
All right. Thank you, sir, for your time. Appreciate it. Mr. Hiles, you can leave that right there. If you'd get the exhibit off the witness stand and tell us who your next witness is, please.
Yes, the next witness is Investigator James J.P. Miller.
Well, that did not go well for the accused.
You swear affirm testimony you will give the truth, the whole truth, Nothing motion says no. I can do it. Status by name for the record.
James Miller, James Miller.
All right, Investigator Miller, where are you currently employed?
Employed at the Fulton County District Attorney's Office.
How long have you been employed there?
Approximately 3 years, September 21.
Okay. What's your capacity at Fulton County District Attorney's Office?
So I'm assigned to the Major Crimes Division, where I investigate primarily homicides, violent crimes, aggravated assaults on robberies. I also get tasked out with other cases such as high-profile cases, RICO cases, gang cases, or whatever else I may be investigating.
Okay. And how long have you been in law enforcement?
So I started my law enforcement career with Douglas County Sheriff's Office after I got out of the Marine Corps in 2009. I started out in corrections, working in the jail, started out in uniform patrol as well. Then I worked some crime suppression and gang investigations. I eventually went to DeKalb County Police Department, where I worked uniform patrol, crime suppression. I also investigated criminal street gangs. Then I was employed by Cherokee County District Attorney's Office in Blue Ridge, where I investigated homicides, aggravated assaults, violent crimes, gang cases, RICO cases, high-profile cases as well. And then September here.
Okay. In your law enforcement career, do you have any specific experience investigating gang crimes?
I do.
Okay, please tell the jury what that experience is.
So I have been investigating criminal street gangs since my very first law enforcement career, starting out in corrections, interviewing individuals that were in the jail that I saw as, or they relayed that they were gang members and whether they were showing me signs and symbols. I also took several different criminal street gang investigator courses, such as the basic gang investigator course with Georgia Gang Investigators Association. I also have my intermediate certification through Georgia Gang Investigators Association, as well as an advanced gang investigator course through DeKalb County Police Department. I have over 200 plus hours in different gang courses, whether it be from various law enforcement agencies across the states. I've also attended, had training received from like LAPD, different agencies from California, New York, and across the state.
Okay. Do you ever teach law enforcement on gang investigations?
I do. I regularly teach. Specifically, I usually get called to teach gang evidence, gang investigation courses, basic courses with Georgia Gang Investigators Association. I'm also a gang instructor for the Prosecuting Attorney Council of Georgia. So we host an advanced week-long course, usually once a year, that is taught alongside with me and other gang investigators, some prosecutors throughout the state. I also host intel meetings 2 times in specifically the Metro Atlanta region, one in Cobb County and one in Gwinnett County. With Georgia Gang Investigators Association, I hold a position specifically as the vice president of the Metro Atlanta region. So that county or that jurisdiction is Cobb County, Fulton County, DeKalb, Gwinnett, Rockdale, Henry County. So within that jurisdiction, I'm responsible for making sure the members of our organization have the most updated and best practices as far as prosecuting and investigating criminal street gangs.
Okay. And have you, in your course of investigating gangs, gang crimes, have you ever interviewed any gang members?
Yes, very regularly.
Okay.
Very what?
Very regularly.
Regularly. Okay. That's different from rarely.
No, regular, on the regular.
On the regular. All right, we'll get with that. All right. And over the course of your, how many gang members would you say you've interviewed?
Hundreds. And honestly, I can't give you an accurate number. It's part of my day-to-day job. Just last week, I interviewed, I believe one last week.
Okay. All right. And during the course of your training and experience, have you had the chance to investigate the gang Young Slime Life, or YSL?
Yes, I have investigated criminal street gang activity of Young Slime Life.
Okay. How many Young Slime Life cases would you say that you've investigated over the course of your, I guess, law enforcement history?
I know it's more than 10. I don't know an accurate number, but I've investigated homicides, armed robberies, burglaries, white collar crimes involving them, shootings, thefts, vehicle thefts.
And, well, Your Honor, at this time, the state would tender Investigator Miller as an expert in criminal street gang investigations, criminal street gang activity, as well as the criminal street gang Young Slime Life.
Ms. Mignot, do you want to voir dire Investigator Miller as to his qualifications, or do you want to wait till you cross-examine him on other issues?
I'll wait till I cross him.
Okay, so you don't have any objection for me qualifying him for purposes of these proceedings as an expert in those fields?
No.
All right, and sir, the accused, do you have any questions? Do you want to question Investigator Miller as to his expert qualifications? Or do you have any objection to me qualifying him as an expert witness in the three fields Mr. Hiles mentioned? I want to be clear, if you say I don't have any questions now, you'll still be able to cross-examine this witness. It's just the threshold. I need to see if there are any objections to having Investigator Miller qualified as an expert.
I do object.
Okay. And what's your basis for objecting?
He's never been in the game.
Okay. All right. Have you ever been in a gang?
I have not, Your Honor.
All right. That may go to the weight of his testimony, but I do find that based on the testimony I've heard from Investigator Miller about his training, experience, and exposure, that for the purposes of this trial, he knows more than the layperson, which is the test for expert qualification. And you are qualified as an expert in the field of criminal street gangs, criminal street gang investigations, and in the nature and origins of YSL.
Did you put together, well, I'm showing you what's been marked as state 38. Did you put together a demonstrative aid in the form of a PowerPoint for your presentation to the jury today?
I have.
And have you had a chance to look at State's Exhibit 38?
I have.
Okay, and it's a full and complete copy of the PowerPoint that you have provided today.
It is.
Okay, Your Honor, at this time, the state would tender State's Exhibit 38, a demonstrative aid for the testimony of Investigator James Bell.
All right, Ms. Mignot, beyond the many objections you've made and preserved and that we've litigated outside the presence of the jury, do you have any additional objections? Because you would be renewing all your previous objections right now. Do you have any additional objections to States 38 being introduced as a demonstrative aid only?
No objection to 38 other than the ones we spoke.
Okay, they are preserved and renewed. Mr. Pritchett, the accused, do you have any additional objections to the admission of States 38 as a demonstrative aid beyond the objections you've already made outside the presence of the jury that we've already litigated? Okay, you are preserving your objections as well. They are renewed here, and 38 is admitted subject to all those objections and changes that have been made to States 38 as a result of some of those objections.
Now I am showing you what has been labeled as States Exhibit 39. Okay. And as part of your investigation into this particular case, did you find related, I guess, music videos that you found pertinent to this particular case?
I did.
Okay, and were those two music videos out of Play Nasty as well as Guns Up?
That is correct.
And do you recognize the thumb drive that is in front of you as containing those two particular videos?
This.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state would move State's Exhibit number 39, music videos, Play Nasty and Guns Up, into evidence.
All right. Before I turn to Ms. Mignot and the accused for any objections, State's Exhibit 39 is very much like State's Exhibit 37. It is evidence that you all should consider, if you consider it in any way, as to only one defendant, but it's the other defendant. State's Exhibit 39, two videos. Should the state publish them? Should you consider them? Are evidence, if they're evidence of anything, only as to Mr. Robinson and not as to the accused. So 37, Pritchett only, 39, Robinson only. Now, Ms. Mignot, these videos have been extensively litigated. You have filed written objections and you've made many objections, some of which were enacted. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, I should tell you one of the two videos may end up seeming a little choppy because there are parts of it that I ordered redacted. That is not the state keeping anything from you. It is Ms. Mignot being an effective advocate for Mr. Robinson and me deciding that's not relevant to what you all are working through. But there are still the two videos. Ms. Mignot, beyond the objections you've made and argued and preserved, anything additional as to State's 39?
Nothing additional, Your Honor.
Okay, they are all renewed and preserved. And turning to the accused, this evidence is not to be used in any way against you, should the jury consider it at all. Do you have any objections to the admission of State's 39?
None other than it still may be prejudiced.
Okay, and that's been argued before by someone on your behalf. I will allow, and so you've preserved it and renewed it. 39 is admitted.
Now, to clarify, 39 is just separate from evidence that will be contained, some of the evidence already admitted, correct? It's not, it's only the music videos that instruction applies to.
Correct. That's why I said 39.
All right, let's get another. In preparation for this, what sort of statistics and facts do you review?
I review several things, whether it be updated news articles, current gang trends. I look at past gang trends. I look at past statistics. One of the statistics that I review is a 2015 study conducted by the FBI. In that study was a threat assessment. In that assessment, they indicated there was over 1.4 million active gang members across the nation, as well as over 30,000 gangs, and those are gang subsets throughout the nation. As part of that statistic, they advise that upwards to 90% of all violent crime can be attributed to gang members. Now, there's a difference between something that is gang motivated or gang related. This is just merely stating that something is attributed to being connected to gang members themselves.
And are you going to review the actual facts of this particular case in preparations for your testimony?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is it your job as the gang investigator reviewing this? Are you involved in the primary investigation as to the underlying charges?
Occasionally I am, but on this particular case, no.
So you were only investigating the gang aspect.
That is correct.
Okay. What is a criminal street gang?
So a criminal street gang is a group of 3 or more individuals, whether formal or informal, who engage in criminal street gang activity. This criminal street gang activity itself is specific crimes outlined by the code section. They're chargeable offenses, so predicate offenses. But what a criminal street gang is going to be a gang of 3 or more individuals, formal or informal, so at least 3 individuals connected to this organization. They're gonna have a common name, sign, symbol. They don't have to have them all, but they have to have something that identifies themselves as what they're portraying. And then the last aspect is the criminal activity. So as an example, fraternities, sororities, different organizations, it's a group of 3 or more individuals, but they're not committing criminal street gang activity. So that's what separates themselves. Just an example, the Shriners International. That's a nonprofit organization, a fraternal organization that does good things around the community and across the globe, helping children. Criminal street gang, the Bloods, a group of 3 or more, have identifying signs, symbols, stuff like that, but they're committing crimes. So the real difference between them is if a crime is committed by, say, a Shriner, that crime doesn't benefit the Shriners International. It makes Shriners International looks bad. Where on the other side of a criminal street gang, they commit a crime and instills fear, intimidation throughout the community. It makes that gang more powerful, and they benefit from that crime.
What are the benefits from instilling fear in the community and committing a crime in an open way?
So there's could be several different benefits. One of the reasons is to portray that violence to suppress the community. For example, if someone is living in a community and they are oppressed in that area, that gang has control in that area, that community is less likely to cooperate with law enforcement. There's a word that they use is called snitching. So a community is less likely to cooperate with law enforcement or snitch for fear of retaliation. That's one way of how they control themselves or operate themselves within the community. Another way of why something would be public is because that notoriety not only is it for the community, but it's for outside of the community, whether it's rival criminal street gangs. So they, if it is a violent crime, rival criminal street gangs will know not to mess with them because they are also extremely violent. That's how we become, we get rivalries between several different gangs, and we have different gang wars essentially throughout Atlanta.
All right, got a little off topic. I'm gonna try and stick to the presentation. What is criminal street gang activity?
So criminal street gang activity is a list of several different crimes. How I remember it is violent crime, gun offenses, weapons offenses, theft offenses, racketeering offenses, which is a slew of hundreds of different charges, but credit card theft, entering autos, burglaries, but narrowly, it also does human trafficking as well.
All right, what are the elements of a criminal street gang?
So 3 or more individuals, so 3 actual individual members, whether formal or informal, they have a common name, sign, symbol, something identifying themselves as a group, and they engage in criminal street gang activity. Now, all 3 of these individuals do not have to go and commit the crime at once. That's just the 3 or more individuals is the gang. So the gang has to exist first.
Okay. And when you say engages in criminal activity, are those the violent offenses, the racketeering offenses, human trafficking, weapons offenses? Is that what you just testified to as the criminal gang activity?
Yes. So criminal street gang activity, just like homicide, aggravated assault, shootings, burglaries, armed robberies, those offenses. So they have to commit those type of offenses and a slew of others.
Briefly touch on if a gang exists, then of 3 or more people engaging in criminal activity, then was it just your testimony that it's not necessary that all 3 people be present for every gang crime? Is that correct?
That is correct. So the 3 or more individuals, that's just establishing that the gang exists. But one individual could go and commit a crime that benefits the gang, and it could be chargeable under the 1615-4 code section.
All right. All right, what is this document that is displayed on the screen in front of the jury?
So this is a foundational block of how I create a criminal street gang case. If I remove any single point of this triangle, this iron triangle, then I do not have a gang case. So for starters, if you look at the very top, gang. So 3 more individuals, 4 more informal, who engage in criminal street gang activity, have some type of identifying sign. If you remove crime, for example, they have to commit this crime, but if you remove it and I just have gang and then the person identified of who committed this crime, say if I remove crime and I just have person and gang, well, it's not a gang crime because it's not illegal to be in a criminal street gang. So if you're just a gang member who are minding your own business, sitting at home, and you didn't commit any crimes, then I don't have a gang investigation. If I remove the gang aspect, and I just have person in crime, then it's just a person who committed a crime. Gang's not connected. But the moment I have all 3, I'm looking for my foundational block of a gang investigation.
All right, what do you look to establish a criminal street gang?
So many different gangs have different common names. They'll call themselves, for example, Bloods, Crips, Gangster Disciples, Vice Lords. Specifically here in Atlanta, it could be something creative, something newly formed from a neighborhood, such as SovCit, or some type of a nickname for a neighborhood that they have. It could have a common color, such as red or blue, purple, black, green. It could also have certain numbers and other identifiers. Some of the more established criminal street gangs that we have, not only across the nation, but here locally in Georgia and in Atlanta, they have several different identifying signs. So different numbers they use, different terminology they use, different colors they use, specific to their criminal street
gang. What are the type of crimes that criminal street gangs commit?
So it's 3 different categories. You have intra, which is going to be like your internal gang issues. So think of one gang member violating or disciplining another individual in his gang. You're going to have inter, which is just in broad sense, Bloods versus Crips, so gang on gang. And then you're going to have extra, which is what we see most, which is a criminal street gang versus the general public, someone who's not affiliated with a criminal street gang.
How do gangs get members?
So several different ways, but most typically they target youth or juveniles. So school, the communities, also in Department of Corrections, Fulton County Jail, across the nation. There's several different ways that individuals can join a criminal street gang.
Please tell the jury the different ways to join a criminal street gang.
So the 3 ways, one could be an individual is jumped in or beat in. So this varies from set to set across the state, across the nation. It could be 31 seconds for one gang. It could be individuals of what they call a 3-on-1, which is 3 individuals jumping on one person. It could be a 5-on-1, 5 individuals jumping on one person. It could be a 1-on-1. It really depends from the set to set, territory, location. A lot of things different matter with this. The time allowed also can vary. Someone who is blessed in is typically such as a family member, like that individual has a high-ranking family member, or a brother or sister, uncle, dad, mom, and they kind of just get brought into the gang. They don't have to get beat in or anything like that. Another form of being beat or being blessed in would be if you are committing crimes that benefit that gang. So not all gang members are, let's say, armed robbers, for example, or murderers. Some of them are really good at white collar crime. So if that is your skill set and you would benefit a certain gang, you may just be blessed in to the organization to help them make money. The last form would be sexton. That's more commonly for females. However, not all females are sexton. Some are beaten or blessed in, just like the males. But a sexton would just be gang members initiating the female by having sex with her.
What is the difference, respect? Like, how does respect differ in the context of a criminal street gang versus the civilian idea or definition of respect?
So respect is everything, and when it comes to criminal street gangs, and I look at it this way: if an individual who is a gang member loses respect, whether it's from a rival gang or the community or within his own organization, that could bring the reputation of his organization, his criminal street gang, down. So in order to increase respect within his organization or into the community, that individual is typically they typically have to do something called putting in work, which is committing criminal street gang activities. So committing crimes, violent crimes. You can become more, your notoriety can grow from these violent crimes, not only within your criminal street gang, but for rival criminal street gangs or in your community. You could be feared. And that fear is what protects and grows with these criminal street gangs. Whereas respect as a civilian, if I'm committing crimes, I'm typically not a respectable person, or people don't just respect me at my workplace. If I was to commit a crime, I would be fired. So that's how typical civilian jobs work.
And then amongst the gang community, what is disrespect, both inside the gang and then outside toward other gangs?
So it's very common for gangs to disrespect rival criminal street gangs. Now, any type of perceived disrespect is usually met with extreme violence, whether that disrespect was as minimal as throwing or posting something online of disrespecting a rival criminal street gang member or that criminal street gang. It's usually met with retaliatory shootings, murders, aggravated assaults, robberies, and other disrespect. So it's ongoing, and that's why we have this bottle effect. One criminal street gang disrespects another, that disrespect goes back, and violence erupts back and forth until it's kind of in the situation that we're in right now.
Okay. Young Slime Life specifically. When was it founded?
So it was founded in approximately 2012. It is a formation of several different criminal street gangs. It has traditional criminal street gangs and something that I consider local hybrid criminal street gangs. So some of the formation of it stemmed from Rock Crew, which was raised on Cleveland. It eventually formed into YSL, also known as Young Slime Life, in the Cleveland Avenue corridor of South Atlanta. They do have territory across Metro Atlanta to include Jonesboro Road, up to some locations around Smith Street and Irish Street, some locations on different blocks on Cleveland Avenue as well. They have several different identifying signs and symbols. The leadership has gained notoriety throughout music and crimes throughout the state.
You said specifically Smith Street and Irish Street. Is that in the Pittsburgh community?
It is.
In the city of Atlanta?
It is.
Okay. And then particularly, I'd like to direct your attention to the 1100 block of Irish Street.
Okay.
What is the significance of, or influence or significance of YSL as it pertains to the 1100 block of Irish Street?
So, like I said, they have different territory across Atlanta. Some is on Cleveland Avenue, some is on, one location is on Irish Street. That specific location on Irish Street, they have been known to sell narcotics, and there has been trap houses located with an allied criminal street gang of YSL known as Duct Tape that operates out of Smith Street specifically.
So is the YSL, the area, is that primarily Irish Street then? In that community?
In the Pittsburgh community,
yes.
And some parts of McDaniel as well, which is like one street over.
gonna breeze through this slide, but is this just depicting the original area where it was first founded?
Yes, and you can see Cleveland Avenue, the Browns Mill, Mount Zion Road area. There's different apartment complexes in that area. It's controlled by Young Slime Life.
What is a hybrid gang?
So a hybrid gang is, so first off, let me explain what a traditional gang is. So a traditional gang is something like Bloods, Crips, Gangster Disciples that has the current rank structure. They have rules, orders, books, Bibles. It can be traced back to the 60s. A local or neighborhood gang is something that has takes on different identifying signs. They use common names and different terminology to identify themselves. Maybe it hasn't been as established. And
this car analogy really brings it home for me,
especially specifically in Atlanta. And
I didn't
you see the
understand the
formation
concept.
of traditional gangs such as Sex, Money, Murder, Nine
That's why I
Trey,
put a Tesla on the
even
screen.
60s, combining with some of these local local criminal street gangs and forming something new, specifically like YSL, where you have Sex, Money, Murder, Nine Trey, 5'9" Brims, Neighborhood Rolling 60s, all creating one gang to essentially control an area, to make money, and to commit crimes and gain notoriety for the criminal street gang. Now, a lot of people think, oh, well, like this is weird because they've seen on movies like in the 90s or something like that of like Bloods versus Crips. There's this huge rivalry, but the reality is like that is not existing. While that may be common in specific areas, that's not what is happening here in Atlanta. Now, there are some rivalries of Bloods versus Crips. There are some rivalries of internally with different Crip members or different Blood members of the same organization. But the reality is most of these gangs are forming together, creating their own individual hybrid gang, and then controlling a territory or multiple territories across the city.
What are some of the terminologies used by Young Slime Life?
So there's several different terms that they use. One of them is SLAT, for SLATT, for slime love all the time. For one of the symbols that they use the color green in snakes, so in slime. So if you see anything with that type of terminology, it could be an identifying sign for YSL. Some of their other acronyms they use is ESPN, Every Slime Play Nasty. Rob, for some of the Blood members of YSL, for representing Cleveland Avenue, which is raised on Cleveland. And if other members may say raised on Cleveland for Rock Crew. RG for Rudy Gang, which is one of the members that passed away as a juvenile. He was killed. SOS, Slime on Sights. These are just some of the terminologies that they utilize.
What would slime on sight mean?
To kill someone on sight or do extreme violence to someone.
What are some of the common identifiers you see associated with the Young Slime Life gang?
So the common identifying sign is the color green. So whether that is bandanas, the use of emojis on social media, such as green hearts, snake emojis, little emoji icons of the green throw up. There's several different things, but the color green is very specific to them. Another one of their signs is you can see depicted in this photo is an individual throwing up YSL. So it's
you tap the bottom portion of your monitor. You please circle the YSL symbol.
So right here, you can see that individual is throwing up a Y. The S is with these two fingers, and then you have the L. So that's what YSL will throw up. Some of the other identifying signs that you may see with this criminal street gang is specific to whatever subset they may be. So if I was a Sex, Money, Murder YSL member, I would throw up Sex, Money, Murder. If I was Nine Trey, I would throw up this with a YSL. So it varies for each individual person, but YSL as a whole, this is a common identifying sign is YSL. The color green. And if you go to the next slide, I think there's some more images. that will help with this.
Erase that, circle.
And this is just more depictions. You can see I made an outline of the YSL and a hand sign, so it's just more easily identifiable to see. It can be commonly misidentified as a rival criminal street gang. The Inglewood family, the Nine Deuce, which is also operates in Atlanta, but they throw a very similar hand sign, just a kind of a 1/4 of an inch. So for an IF would be a rival of YSL, but specifically YSL throws it as a specific, very abundant Y.
What other symbols do you often see them, or motions do you see them make?
So another common hand sign is a wiping the nose aspect. I'll sometimes see these individuals throw up the wipe under the nose and then also throw up YSL. It's not uncommon to see both of them at the same time. That terminology is to wipe someone's nose. So it's to essentially the reference of killing someone, causing serious injury, robbing, shooting an individual. They'll commonly refer to sliming someone out, which is a reference to committing extreme violence to that individual, and that's how they would identify it.
Are there any sort of animals, reptiles associated with YSL?
Yeah, so it's mainly snakes. They really like using snakes, and whether it's music videos, holding snakes, utilizing the snake emojis, they will also commonly use like lizards and other reptiles.
What is tagging?
So tagging is just essentially spray paint from a criminal street gang that identifies a territory owned or operated from that criminal street gang. It's a warning sign to rival gangs, like, hey, this is owned by us. It's also a warning sign to the community of who actually operates in an area.
What sort of common identifiers do you see on social media often associated with YSL?
So there's several, but green heart emojis, green snake emojis. You can see several different postings, just kind of various descriptions of slime or slat for slime love all the time. There's a reference of blat for blood love all the time. The reference of slime, the reference of YSL. These are some of the common identifying signs that I see with investigating this criminal street gang.
And what is the significance that the music industry plays in the criminal street gang activity and criminal street gangs in general in Atlanta and across the country?
So it's very common for some of these criminal street gangs that may have a record label to be discussing types of violent crimes that this criminal street gang commits and is committed by the organization. It also can be used as a recruiting tool in some situations to the youth in our neighborhoods and in our communities, but oftentimes it's to show they're able to show disrespect to rival criminal street gangs or rival members. They're able to brag and boister their criminal street gang of how it's better by showing off money. They're also able to display guns, whether props or real, because they often will put disclaimers on their videos that say these are prop guns, but it's still portraying the same imagery of, hey, we have guns, we're armed, and we're willing to commit violence to a rival criminal street gang.
Have you seen a theme of real guns being used in videos with a message saying this is prop guns?
I have several times.
Why do you think that is? What are they trying to avoid?
They're trying to avoid incriminating themselves, typically, if that individual may be a convicted felon or something like that, and he's in a music video with his criminal street gang holding a gun. He would rather it's a prop, so he's not incriminating himself.
And I think this would be a good point to share music videos that you've identified as being relevant. I'm going to play each one only once, and in between, I'm going to ask you some questions of how they're connected to criminal street gang activity and criminal street.
Okay.
And a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, these two videos are being admitted for your consideration, if you consider them in any way, as to defendant Robinson only.
We're not going to see it. Throw up a video before he gets worse. Or Log Talk with Mike Gang. It's going to be on that
You're not
monitor
gonna
back
see it in
there.
front of your screen, Investigator Miller, you'll have to turn. But this is the first video you identified.
Oh,
Shows that it's
we're getting mullet blocked.
Santana, Ola, Runt, and YSL Stingy. Is it common for the artists in these videos to have or call out other prominent members of the gang to be part of their actual music video shoots and promotion of the gang?
Yeah, so it's very common. So if one criminal street gang has an alliance with another criminal street gang, they would even invite them out to this, so to be part of this, to show others who they're aligned with and who they're not. Now, criminal street gang active rivalries and alliances, they change very, very commonly here in Atlanta. So this is just, one example of an alliance.
Guns up, fucking guns up, everybody's fucking guns up, guns up, guns up, guns up, fucking guns up, guns up, guns up, fucking guns up, guns up, guns up, yeah, guns up, guns up. Fucking with this, still be crazy. I got blue cheese on every bag, no cash out. I'm in the trap, put this out, I need some rain. Find out all you gun up, double that you run it up. What's up, get your guns up. Guns up, ay, fucking guns up, guns up, guns up, ay, fucking guns up. Guns up. They don't like it, it's 12, easy me, twice, you can breathe, just with me in my teeth, baby, look at I can be, got some flesh shit on my sleeve, brain is blinking to a green, and it's all train me, pull up, I know that seat, these guns up, I don't give a fuck, I got a yellow bitch, she ate it, ate it up, I said, oh, I don't give a fuck, guns up, cause I keep it tick, and I keep it 99, I'm a dollar, I'm respect, I'm a shot, I'm a rap, I'ma come and get that money, need it all right now. 20 50 dollars, niggas on me now, right now. I gotta take on me, nigga, in the booth right now. Gotta get it in my fucking face, I can right now. Guns up, fucking guns up, guns up, guns up. Yeah, guns up, guns up. Fucking with this, you'll get cracked back. Put a number on this ass like I got blue cheese on every bag, no cash out. I'm in the trap, put this out, I need some rain rap. Guns up, find out all you gun up, double that you run up. What's up, get your guns up. Wiping niggas stain, I can't get it back at number 2 and 12, grab the bucket, I don't know. Check it down with an XD, we on like all on the cheese. I check out my alcohol, I can't customize my car. They'll drive by on your block, let it slide, fit it right now, you don't just like the kitchen. You catch a cat, the judge and fire your ass, you like some chicken. Interrogation just next side of it, no suspicious. My household, man, I know something about that, but the riches got keep a got a tweaking white car, you know I say hold on, shine, can't hold on, drive by, but I ain't drive, think about it, I ain't crying. bloodshed, but I ain't got how to say it, cause I ain't tired of you on the know, I am never feel you know me down. Put on your phone, I'm rich, drop out. I heard you in it from clout, heard you in it from fame, blood on my shirt, that's the stain. Guns up, hey, fuck it, guns up, hey, fuck it, guns up, yeah, guns up, beat.
Recognize the location of that video shoot?
Yeah, so that is on Irish Street, the 1100 block.
Okay. And is it common for gang members to use the block numbers associated with their name and referring to themselves and or others?
Yes, it is very common for them to create music videos or social media postings in their territory that they control.
Okay. And I heard a couple terms that I want to ask you about. There was a reference to wiping someone's stain. What is stain and what does that mean in context of saying wiping someone's stain?
So stain is like, it is a rank or status, respectability, has like multiple different meanings within a criminal street gang. So the only way to increase your stain would be to increase your status of that criminal street gang. So for example, if I was a newly formed member of within a criminal street gang, I just got beat in and I hadn't committed any crimes for the gang, I would be known as someone that doesn't have any stain yet. Whereas someone who is a known shooter or a known robber or known for killing or disrespecting rivals, they would have more stain within the organization.
What does it mean to wipe someone's stain? If you wipe someone's stain, they can't get it back. What does that mean?
So wiping it would be to kill that individual, wiping them off, like it would be that context.
Like one more music video.
Oh, Andrew. It's time for the meds, Andrew.
And this is this the date that you were able to retrieve this video? Play nasty.
Yes, it would be.
And where did you first come across this video, Play Nasty?
It would have been publicly broadcasted on YouTube.
And did you ever see it inside of? Did you review Tyrone Robinson's phone?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you see this video actually stored in his phone as well?
I did.
Now, what does the term false flag mean?
So false flagging would be if an individual was to false represent that he was part of an organization that he wasn't part of. It's very rare, and if it does happen, or anytime it would happen, and that individual would be met with a real individual of that gang, and they found or they knew that individual wasn't part, they would be met with some type of extreme violence, whether it's like beat up or robbed or shot or killed. But something would happen to that individual if they were caught false flagging.
Okay. Now, based off of those two music videos, do you have a determination of the membership of the gang YSL of Tyron Robinson in your expert opinion?
Yeah, so he's in the music videos. There's several different identifying signs that we saw in both videos. Was hand signs by individuals such as YSL, the different organizations that make the different national criminal street gangs that make up YSL, such as Sex Money Murder hand signs, Nine Trey, the green bandanas, individuals wearing chains that say YSL. Some of the individuals in the music videos being charged with other YSL crimes and connected to other crimes of YSL. The collectively and totality of all these identifiers, yes, I confidently say that he is a member of YSL or Young Slime Life.
Okay. Now, these images that are included appear to be screenshots or images taken during the shooting of that music video.
That is correct.
And did you come across these on Tyron Robinson's phone?
I did.
Now, especially considering that this was filmed on Iris Street in the city of Atlanta, what would be the ramification in this city of false flagging or stating your membership without being a member?
You would be met with extreme violence if you were false flagging in their territory. You would not be invited to be a part of anything that they're doing.
Now, I understand that these are music videos. Are the music videos in and of themselves illegal?
No.
Okay. How does the crimes committed by these members, how does it promote, or does it promote the gang when they are sung about in these music videos?
It does. So, for example, in the first music video, they were talking about they gave threats to rival gangs, like "Don't mess with us." They also talked about selling za, which is marijuana. So they're talking about drug sales. In the second music video, they're talking about specifically how they will get individuals who are with them to pistol whip you and to rob you and to injure you with firearms. So that is boistering that they are a violent criminal street gang and willing to do those offenses, and that they do those offenses.
Now, I understand the dynamics here and the way, but all music, in particular rap, not all rap music is considered game associated, correct?
No, there's all kinds of rap that is not gang related. Some is, some isn't. Some's making millions. Some isn't. It just kind of depends. No, there's all types of music though.
And I want to touch on the dynamic too. Do gangs themselves tend to be segregated based on race, whether it's white or black?
Yeah, so it can. So it's not all gangs, but some gangs are racially motivated, such as any type of white nationalist type criminal street gang is primarily white men. KKK is typically the Ku Klux Klan is typically white people. Gangster Disciples, which is a criminal street gang, is actually a mixture of both white and African Americans. Hispanic gangs are typically, for example, like Serenos are typically Hispanic or Latinos, or some white people. Nine Trey, Sex, Money, Murder, most Crips, predominantly African American, but occasionally there are some white members. Same Piru can be predominantly African American, but there are some white members, some Hispanic members as well. But it really depends on the actual criminal street gang itself.
Now, what's the importance of fashion or clothing and colors inside of the criminal street gang?
So, it can be important to display or flag your colors and represent your criminal street gang through social media. So specifically though, it's not as boisterous as TV or movies makes it anymore. It can be, but it's typically not. Like, you don't typically have an individual who is wearing red shirt, red hat, red shoes, red pants, with a red bandana, walking down the sidewalk saying, "This is my hood." Typically is a little bit more discreet, because that would attract a lot of heat by law enforcement if we saw that. That's like kind of a red flag goes off, so to speak. So individuals will they'll still flag, but they will commonly reserve that for social media postings, for example. Occasionally the younger members can be caught with flags, like whether it's tied on the right side or left side, or in their pockets, in their front pockets, back pockets, tied through their belt loops, or tied on a firearm, can also be common. But it's not necessarily you have to, wear green head to toe to be considered a member. Some members could, you can wear nothing that's green, but still represent your criminal street gang online or in the community by displaying hand signs, tattoos. So that's why there's so many different identifying signs for these criminal street gangs.
And are these more these photos that are here? Are these more photos and screenshots that you obtained through Tyron Robinson's site?
That is correct.
So what is the screenshot in the middle? Slim Santana. Who would that be? Would that be the artist we just saw?
That is.
Okay. And the individuals in that, do you notice any signs and identifiers of YSL?
I do. So right here, that individual is throwing up a YSL while holding a green bandana. Robinson right here is throwing up YSL while wearing a green bandana. This individual in the middle, he's throwing up a very common blood hand sign. It's this for blood love. This individual is Slim Santana. He's throwing up a double pistol, which is paying homage to Sex, Money, Murder founder Peter Rolak, who went by the nickname Pistol Pete, just another criminal street gang that is part of YSL. And then you have the accused right here wearing holding a green bandana. Some of the other captions in this as well, in this posting, I can't really see it from mine, but it says, "Meet with the rap shit, 1100 snake pit. We're gonna take some
I had to tell my partner Jill because he is gonna whack some with a tornado emoji.
So that tornado emoji's reference to like spinning or like to spin the block. So shoot or rob or steal. The snake pit reference is a reference to they have several individuals and members in the 1100 block of IRA. Since they will reference themselves as snakes, they're referencing that territory as a snake pit.
In that last photo, keep moving, that last photo, can you please, that screenshot, who appears to have posted that screenshot?
So the Instagram vanity name is Rick Rare.
I think we've covered this. Oh, actually, I want to get back to one thing. Only on the far right picture, what does happy slat day? What does that mean?
So it could be multiple different meanings. It could be that individual's birthday. It could be different criminal street gangs have their own hood day. So it's like the birthday of the gang. So YSL does have their own hood day. They have a Cleveland Avenue day that's hosted on Cleveland Avenue. That they have individuals that have cookouts, music, people usually drinking, maybe a little bit of marijuana use. But it's an event-based community event that they host.
Okay, and to be based on what your testimony earlier is, if all these gang members were associated, in fact, hanging out, just drinking beers, having a good time, so long as they're not committing any crimes, there's nothing illegal about that, correct?
That's correct.
Now, this particular case, are you aware of the general facts of the case, the home invasion at Wiley Street?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Now, what is it that connects, the person being Tyron Robinson to the gang and to the crime itself?
So we saw. Could you repeat your question one more time? Because there's like 3 parts.
Sorry, I should have. All right. Let me start with this. When it comes to criminal street gang activity, what is a nexus?
So a nexus is it's a word we don't typically use, but it is simply a connection. So how does that connection or that activity benefit the criminal street gang? And if something benefits the individual member, it in turn benefits the criminal street gang. So a good example of a nexus would be individuals committing a crime in public or with another individual that would increase both individuals' status because they had a witness with their gang essentially witness them commit a crime. So they would be able to tell other gang members of what they're capable of and what kind of crimes that they do, which in turn would increase the status of the gang because they commit violence.
Okay. Do all nexus, in a sense, do they all have to be a public commission of a crime?
No, I mean, it can be as simple as making money from drug sales. It can be as simple as stealing guns or stealing an item. It can be as simple as killing a rival criminal street gang member. That would benefit the gang. It could be multiple different aspects of how a nexus could benefit a criminal street gang.
When you're dealing with nexus and looking at how it benefits a particular street gang, do you tend to, do you ever look to see if whether the proceeds of a crime are split between the members of the gang?
Yeah, so sometimes there's evidence of, or we get through, different interviews that I've done throughout several different investigations. Funds or proceeds from a crime can be distributed in a multitude of different ways. But yes, when the profit is shared, it's usually shared by those who commit it, and whether who else benefits from it from that criminal street gang, whether an individual member kind of gave them a heads up or kind of orchestrated this crime, would that individual benefit from proceeds, or if that individual kind of paid them to go handle something. It really depends, it's totality based.
right. We saw those pictures earlier of when it comes to defendant Pritchett. This one here, what do you see that indicates any reference to YSL or that specific set?
So
There's just a delay. It's really bad. Can you see on your?
It's medium bad.
I was looking at 3 different screens with different.
Yeah.
This one's.
So there's several different identifiers that I see. One is the accused's depicted in a photo with his Instagram handle, but he's standing with individuals who are throwing common identifying signs. One individual's throwing up a double pistol. One individual's throwing up a big B for Bloods. This individual, his moniker is YSL Benji. So he's actually using the acronym for the criminal street gang YSL while throwing up different hand signs. Then the posting itself is reference to 1100 block with a green heart emoji. And although it's this geotag says Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, this appears to be the same house that was shot off of Irish Street in the Pittsburgh community of Atlanta.
Your screen changed?
It has.
So same question with this picture. Any one where is this? What's the poster of this picture?
Yeah, so this is a posting from Rick Rare. You see an individual throwing up YSL for Young Slime Life. The utilization of a green bandana, which is a color used by YSL. I see the actual posting states, can't really see because of the zoom aspect, but it tags 2 individuals, a Young Bands, which is a rapper, a YSL rapper, and then Rick Rare. And then they're also posing in a Rolls Royce, which is, a high dollar item.
The caption, can you read it from the here?
Okay. This is.
I
got you. I moved my face. The caption states, "Red Dead was hard." So I'm assuming they saw a movie. There's a snake emoji. There's a acronym of SLAT. And then their Instagram vanity names.
So, based off of what you've seen in your investigation into the gang aspect of this crime, would you consider Mr. Max Pritchett, or also known as Rick Rare, to be a member or an associate of the criminal street gang YSL?
Absolutely. With the several different postings using acronyms commonly used by them, holding the green bandanas, communication with them, posing in their territory. Absolutely. I would say he's a member of Young Slime Life, YSL.
And again, in the city of Atlanta, as to Max Pritchett specifically, what would be the fallout of holding yourself or false flagging as a member of YSL if you were not?
Objection on ask and answer more than once.
Indeed. Next question. Maybe only once, but still asked and answered.
Okay. Now, I'm showing you what's been admitted is criminal street. What's been admitted as State's Exhibit 16. What about the cost and color of clothing? How does that come into effect or play a part in criminal street business?
So it's very common for criminal street gang members to pose with high dollar items, whether it's high profile shoes or like Balenciagas or Versace shoes, and posing and kind of flexing like how much money they have or how much money the gang is making. So that's very common.
Okay. And is it common for the members of those gangs to buy those high dollar clothing items in the colors associated with their gang?
It can be. It can be. So, for example, like what's depicted in this photo is looks like a very slime green color that they utilize. So it wouldn't be uncommon for a YSL member to purposefully kind of flaunt that color.
And then this last picture, and give this picture of a warrant. Was that warrant, that picture, is that another picture that you uncovered inside of Tyrone Robinson's phone?
It was.
Okay. And what about the other two pictures pertaining to the two defendants? Were those both recovered from Tyrone Robinson's phone?
That is true.
So all right, so as it pertains to your PowerPoint, I don't have any more questions. I just want to talk about the Instagram and how you utilize it in determining, specifically when it comes to differentiating between vanity name and username. And give me 1 second. I'm going to go through what's been State's Exhibit 29. What's the difference between a vanity name and an account name?
So a vanity name is your username. An account name would be, for example, like your common name, John Smith. Your vanity name has to be a unique identifying sign different from any other vanity name on Instagram. There's either one can be changed, but they are different.
Popping up now. All right, so I'm currently inside what's been identified as State's Exhibit 29.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the Instagram dump of Tyrone Robinson. So I want to talk about a few things too. So I see that there are a couple, the first three, one's an affidavit, one's a PDF, and one's a zip file, or the last three. Are those, when you get the records, is that what you see originally?
Yes. So essentially the PDF files is time, date stamp of all the integrated videos, pictures, and so forth in this file. You'll see a zip folder, and it will have different content such as audio, if someone sent like an audio voice message or something of that nature, such as a call. If there is a video posting or a story posting or any other type of social media posting, it'll be in that zip file, whether it's video, picture, or audio.
Okay, and so the zip file, as it's zipped, is that going to contain the date that it is turned over to you, or Instagram turns over the records?
That's typically whenever it's whenever it was pulled. So whatever custodian, whether from Facebook, whenever they pull that record, it'll typically be in that format. However, if you go through the business records aspect of it, it'll have a date time stamp of when the
items were essentially posted, uploaded, shared, transferred, whatever the action may have been through those records.
Next question is going to be, can you even access the linked media and the digital media until you unzip that original file provided by Instagram?
Well, so it varies because each time it can be unlocked from a different, or you might get a different format. You might not even get a zip file. So it really kind of depends on the volume of items you receive. But if you were to get a zip file, no, you wouldn't be able to look at it until you went into the format.
And then the date of the linked digital media, is that going to then reflect the updated file of the date that it was unzipped as to the file name, not the media itself?
Yeah, it could, as long as it's, done properly. Yeah.
Then now, after stop sharing, we'll show you this last. All right. The account name, and then account name right here. What does that say?
So the account number says 1100 baby slat.
The account name, the account, okay. And then the registered email, what does that say?
Says Robinson Tyrone 999@gmail.com.
Okay. And then the vanity name.
The vanity name is _the goat 1100.
Okay. Now, are the account name and the vanity name going to be displayed simultaneously on the front of your profile?
It can. It depends on the user's account and how they have it set up. So some people don't even have anything under their account name. They could just have a vanity name. Some individuals could have it matching. So it could say, John Smith 1100, John Smith 1100. It could say 1100 baby slat or the goat 1100. It can be changed whenever the individual wants to change it. There's a specific record number that is associated with that vanity name and that Instagram records that never changes. So as long as that account was created, every content, no matter how many times someone changes a vanity name or an account name, the records can be still figured out.
Okay. And is that number that never changes the target number?
Yes, it is.
In the vanity name, is that generally what's used with the @ when you are tagging somebody?
Yes.
Okay.
And is most commonly referred to as a username. Instagram and Facebook, they call it a vanity name. So I just call it a vanity name.
But if there is an account name and there is a vanity name assigned to an account, at some point they'll both be displayed on the front of the profile.
Yes.
No further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Mignot, you have more than 5 questions for this witness?
Is that a trick question, Judge? Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you to that then. We're gonna break for lunch, ladies and gentlemen. I think it'll make the cross-examinations flow a little more smoothly because the lawyers can work on them during lunch rather than jumping to. And we'll just ask Investigator Miller to return after the lunch break and not talk about his testimony during that lunch break. It is about 12:40, somewhere about that. 1:30, too quick to have you be back? Seeing no one say no, great. Let's try to be back at 1:30 to continue with Investigator Miller's testimony. And we'll pick it up there. Any logistical questions? Enjoy your lunch break. No outside research. Don't talk about the case.
Ah, well, there you have it. There you have it. All the way to lunch. I can't do this afternoon, which is too bad. He made me laugh when he said that they can work on their cross-examinations. You know, the accused is going to have a fantastic cross-examination. I think he's gonna revisit his theory that this guy's not not an expert because he wasn't in a gang. You know, not appreciating the fact that if he was in a gang, you know, he wouldn't be in law enforcement. Oh, good Lord. That should be fun. Both the attorney and him should be fun, but that went on for a while there. I'm gonna try to pick it up. It looks like they're gonna play around with this for a while, and I have some stuff I have to do. I'll check in if I can. I don't know. I doubt it. Frankly, I doubt it. I doubt it. But thank you all for coming out. I appreciate it. I want to be around. I definitely want to be around for closing argument if possible. I don't know if that is possible. I want to. I'll tell you what my goal is. I've done stuff from every day, but I haven't done the entire trial. That's all I got for today. But if at all possible, I would like to see the closing arguments, and if the accused, Big Dummy, SovCit, Rick Rare, Mr. Pritchett, whatever the hell you want to call him, if he takes the stand, I want to see it. I really do. That's always the most fun. All right, you guys. Thank you. You know, it's over on McBurney's channel. You go check it out. I don't know if anybody else is streaming it. I haven't looked. I've been halfway off grid here for a while. I will see you all soon.